Anyway, folks, I think we're gonna have a good one here. Let's get into it. I'm still trying to get this base all set up.
Whether or not sexual liberation is good, and we are starting right now with Daniel
Now, if that picture
Hikachico from
starts getting
Stateroom. Thanks so
weird,
much
I'm gonna
for being
switch
with
that
us.
up.
Daniel, the floor is all yours for your opening statement.
Hopefully, it don't though.
Okay,
We'll see.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam ala rasulillah. I want to give two main arguments for why we should all reject sexual liberation. First, the totalitarianism argument. We all want an ordered society. Order means cooperation and non-aggression. It means that people work together to produce food, maintain shelter, defend against outside attacks. It means people don't harm each other, destroy each other's property, steal or molest. Without order, life is just nasty, brutish, and short. So how do you prevent this chaos and maintain order? There are two approaches, top-down versus bottom-up. We all know the top-down
What's
approach.
good, guys?
There's a centralized government that enforces laws that prevent us from harming each other and requires us to cooperate. The government uses technologies to enforce laws and maintain social order. Historically, most of human civilization has not had this top-down system, mainly because
You know what? I
centralization,
kind of want to put these guys over
surveillance,
here,
and
actually.
enforcement require technology. If
Yeah,
someone
let them.
decides to attack you, you use technology like your phone to call the police. The police use cars to get to you as quickly as possible, and firearms to apply deadly force efficiently. Technology is essential to maintain order. Without these technologies, anyone can assault you or destroy your property, and by the time authorities find out, you're dead. So how did societies maintain order prior to these technologies? For most human history, order was not top-down, but rather bottom-up. This social order through organic, biologically rooted relationships of marriage, family, community, and
Oh
religion.
no, no, no. That's
When
not
you're
what I meant
married
to.
to someone
Wait
in
back
a
up.
reciprocal relationship of commitment and care, you're less inclined to harm him or her. When you're in the same family and share kinship ties with mother, father, children, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc., you're less inclined to harm them. You're more inclined to care for them, cooperate with them, provide for them, even self-sacrifice for them. You have this natural altruism and non-aggression to
I
members
don't like
of
that.
your larger kinship group in your community. Also, religion increases altruism. These things are all biologically based. These natural mechanisms we all have foster ordered human society. Not all animals have these mechanisms, which is why many societies do not live together many species do not live together in groups. But humans can live in large ordered groups because of these natural instincts that maintain the fundamental relationships that generate social order from the bottom up. The problem with sexual liberation
Yeah, let's
is
try.
it destroys these organic relationships. This is self-evident, especially given how the biggest advocates of sexual liberation historically, people like Shillamuth Firestone, Andrea Dworkin, Masha Gessen, have explicitly stated that their goal is to destroy marriage and family. But if there is any doubt about how sexual liberation is so corrosive to marriage and family, we can go deeper into the evidence in the open discussion. But the point is, when these relationships are gone, the natural tendencies that we have to be altruistic, to cooperate, to not harm others, all these biologically rooted tendencies are greatly diminished, if not completely lost. As a result, social order collapses, and the only way to have order is by imposing an increasingly totalitarian top-down system. This is what we have today. Without robust organic bonds, the only way to prevent society from exploding is to track everyone, monitor everyone's media consumption, censor people to prevent violence, closely regulate what is taught in schools, surveil everyone's finances, restrict access to weapons, even impose a social credit system. Here's a concrete example. Naturally, fathers have a strong bond with their children, a natural instinct to love, protect, and provide. Part of this affection is tied to the father's knowledge that his children are really his. If he's not certain that his children are biologically his because the mother has been cheating on him, then that affects his natural feelings for those children and his willingness to provide for them. This is found even in the animal kingdom when paternity is obscured due to promiscuous female behavior or even the possibility of promiscuous female behavior.
Alright, so we
This
gotta get
kills
all this.
fatherly investment. But traditional cultures and religions prevent this by banning promiscuity. And the bonds of marriage and extended family pressure ensure that fathers provide for their kids. But today, sexual liberation destroys these organic mechanisms, directly harming children. Without these mechanisms, the top-down state must intervene by forcing fathers to provide child support. It does this by tracking fathers, forcefully taking funds from their bank accounts, throwing them in jail if they miss payments. This level of totalitarian control was not necessary in the past because organic relationships created the internal psychological and the external sociological conditions to all but guarantee paternal investment. Another example, single motherhood has shot up since the sexual revolution. Who is providing for millions of children living in these single mom households when mothers can't? In bottom-up societies without sexual liberation, it's the father, extended families, the larger kinship group. In liberated societies like the US and Europe, it's the welfare state. 90% of welfare in the US is given to single mothers. Where does the money for these programs come from? It comes from you and me as taxpayers. The government must create this massive bureaucratic system to surveil all our finances and then forcefully tax us in order to subsidize sexual liberty. This is how sexual liberty and totalitarianism are deeply linked. Another example, so much of our mental health depends on traditional marriage and extended families. This is how God created us, but even if you don't believe in creationism or God and instead believe we are a product of evolution, you must also believe that our psychologies were formed in the context of thousands of years of traditional marriage and family. If you suddenly pluck humans out of that context and throw them in a world of unprecedented sexual liberation, you would also expect unprecedented mental dysfunction. And that's exactly what we see. According to evolution, we didn't evolve the psychologies needed to live well-adjusted lives as sexually unrestricted, polyamorous, porn-addicted libertines. Who's going to ensure that this society of mentally dysfunctional people doesn't rip itself to shreds? You need a muscular, totalitarian surveillance state just to prevent mass upheaval. So this is the totalitarianism argument. The second argument is the chicken argument. Imagine a man who goes to the grocery store, buys a whole chicken, takes it home, has sex with it, cooks it, and eats it. Is this morally permissible? When Western
weird,
college-educated people
It's
are
weird.
asked this, they say they think it's weird, but it isn't immoral. But when you ask non-Westerners this, regardless of culture or religion, they find this highly immoral. Why the difference? Psychologists like Jonathan Haidt explain that we have different moral modules within the mind. One module is the care/harm module. This module makes us feel that harming others is wrong. Another module is the purity disgust module. This one makes us feel that things like smearing feces on someone or sex with a chicken is wrong. What Haidt and others argue is that Westerners, due to their culture and education, have a muted purity disgust module. This means that the care/harm module dominates their moral evaluations. This is why in the chicken example, Westerners feel icky about it, but they don't feel there's a moral objection because technically no one is harmed. As long as no one is harmed, there's no moral problem. This moral sense is codified by John Stuart Mill's harm principle, which has heavily influenced Western law and moral philosophy. All is permitted as long as you don't harm others. But for most humans, morality is more than just a calculation of harm. Disgust is also a big part of determining right and wrong. Sure, there's cultural diversity about disgust, but there are also universals. Humans universally find certain sexual behaviors viscerally disgusting. Humans also universally value innocence, purity, and sexual virtue. So I want to ask Mr. Girl and other fans of sexual liberation, do you believe that disgust and purity are morally valid? If not, then you should accept the full consequences of your stance. You should accept things like incest. If people are wearing condoms, there's no moral problem with parents, children, siblings all having sex, necrophilia, bestiality, the whole 9 yards. If you say disgust is not valid, you also have to admit that there's no problem with cannibalism, like eating dead relatives, with eating aborted fetuses, or how about pornography on every billboard, showing porn to preschoolers? Ultimately, you have to believe that a sexually liberated society with all these things is as good as a society without them. If you want sexual liberation, you have to be committed to going all the way. And if that weren't bad enough by itself, to make matters worse, none of us
Bro,
really
why you
know
gotta
what
be
going
committed to
all
going all
the
the
way
way?
even
That
means.
what?
Sexual liberation is like a dark, terrifying abyss. Once you jump in, you don't know where you'll end up, and there's no stopping the fall. Fans of sexual liberation might not be fazed by the perversions rampant today, but we ain't seen nothing yet. Now, I'm a Muslim. I maintain that sexual liberation is bad for religious reasons. I believe there's great wisdom in God prohibiting destructive sexual behaviors, and Islam is the best religion in terms of facilitating healthy sexuality. But the totalitarianism and chicken arguments are not religious. They're arguments that appeal to our common humanity. I'm looking forward to hearing Max's response.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening statement from Daniel. And want to let you know, folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, we are a neutral channel hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. We hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from. And with that, thanks so much, Mr. Girl. Thrilled to have you as... That's right. Mr. Girl has deferred on his opening statement, saying that he prefers to have more open discussion, so we're jumping right into that open discussion. And thanks so much, gentlemen. The floor is all yours.
Okay, yeah, I have a couple responses to some parts of that. Um,
A couple,
one, I
Mr. Girl.
feel like you're framing it with a false dichotomy in that pointing out problems with modern Western society, like divorce or child, custody battles or child support payments. I don't think that is necessarily an argument in favor or against sexual liberation. I think those are problems too, and so I assume other like liberal leaning people can imagine a society where you have sexual liberation and you can solve those problems, that you don't need like fundamentalist religion to solve those problems. Another point I wanted to address was the disgust thing. I think disgust can be a consideration without being labeled as moral. So there are things that we don't want our neighbors to do because they're too disgusting. Even if we don't think we don't have to say they're immoral to say like, hey, don't do that. I think that was it. Oh yeah, I guess also just the idea that getting hounded for child support by a court is more totalitarian than what happens in majority Muslim countries or under Sharia law. If you break the rules, I don't agree with that either. I think I agree. There's like I get what you're saying, that there's more of a need for tracking people because they're not already organized into families and marriages on their own. But I don't think they really are organized on their own. I still think that the iron fist of totalitarianism is a lot of what is keeping those marriages and families together.
You got it. And we'll jump into open discussion more formally. Also want to remind you folks, our guests are linked in the description, so if you'd like to hear more from either Daniel or Mr. Girl, you certainly can by clicking on their links below, as well as, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button as we have many more juicy debates coming up. Thanks so much, gentlemen. The floor is all yours for open dialogue.
So, thanks, Max, for the response and for listening to all of the 10 minutes. I know it's kind of long, but I had a few questions. I wanted to address your points that you brought up in your response, but I thought it'd be good if you can define sexual liberation and like what exactly do you understand that to mean?
Okay, so I've read several of your articles, and I've seen your debate with Destiny, and a couple your video about pornography. And I think one another of your videos. So my understanding is that under Sharia law, and you believe this, if two men are caught having sex, they can be executed. So that, to me, that is the like probably the epitome of not sexual liberation. So I guess sexual liberation for me is consenting adults can do
Whatever they want.
and think about or fantasize about whatever they want. And the government does not force you to have sex or provide sex. I don't know if this is a thing, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume that there is some wifely duty to provide sex for her husband under Sharia law. It's hard to describe what sexual liberation is. It's easier to describe what it isn't. So yeah,
So,
I think that's
thing
my
is
working
that-
definition now.
So the thing is that, like, in the opening, that if you have this kind of rule that as long as it's consenting adults doing what they want, that's going to lead to a lot of dysfunction. It's going to lead to psychological dysfunction, I claim, and there's a lot of research that will justify this. It will also lead to sociological problems like the collapse of marriage, this massive increase in single-parent households, massive decrease in or increase in divorce, which can be very traumatic for children, obviously. You have just a more individualistic, atomized society, and then that has to be addressed through more top-down measures, totalitarian control, where we live in essentially in a surveillance state because people don't have the same kind of organic kindness, willingness to cooperate, willingness to avoid harming others, because they're not related to each other through like clear biological lineage and larger families. And so the totalitarianism is the result of what you described, consenting adults doing whatever they want. But so this is a reason why we wouldn't want to have this kind of sexual liberation.
So you're saying some sort of top-down control is inevitable. So why not just use that top-down control to keep people in marriages and families rather than to? Well,
So one of the
do you concede that, in your view, that the society should push people or force people into heterosexual marriage, essentially? Like there's not really another option.
I think that heterosexuality, pair bonding, these are natural things. Like they emerge even without like a governmental force. And we should distinguish also between pre-modern governments versus the modern nation state, and especially the modern surveillance police state, because technology has allowed a level of control over people's lives that has never existed in the past. So yeah, in Islam, in Sharia, which I believe in and I promote, there are these kinds of governmental measures, right?
Yes.
Like
So that's what I'm talking about. Do you concede that is also totalitarian?
No, because it's something like you can have a system, like you can have a government that's not totalitarian. The government imposes, like every government will impose certain kinds of restrictions, whether we're talking about Protestant kings or the Catholic Church or Chinese
Sure.
Han Dynasty. Like there are always going to be some kind of
But like
government
if you
imposition. That's
stray,
not necessarily totalitarian.
but if you have premarital sex, or if you have gay sex, or do these things that you are labeling as sexual liberation that destroy families and marriages, if you do, you're not allowed to do those things under Sharia law.
Yes, but I'm inviting you to think about. I'm inviting you and the audience to consider those restrictions on certain sexual behaviors and promiscuity as benefiting overall society because it maintains marriages and so forth.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm just trying to get you to concede that you're saying we won't need this top-down surveillance state because if you just use a top-down, more authoritarian approach earlier in the process, before the marriage falls apart, then you can just kind of hold together that way. But either
it's not
way,
top down. It's not top down. Like it's bottom up because this is something that's biological. Heterosexuality is biological.
you
Whereas
can still force someone to do something that is biological. Like you could force someone to eat.
yeah, you can incentivize it. You can incentivize
You can
it.
force some. You can put a machete to someone's neck and make them eat a sandwich, even if they're
again,
hungry. You're still forcing them to do it.
Again, humans naturally do this. You don't need a government. Like parents.
Well, then why do you need Sharia law to tell people not to have premarital sex if they're naturally going to do that, or to tell women not to leave their husbands if they're like you're still telling people to do something in either case. And so I'm willing to concede to you that yeah, families break apart. We don't know whose kids are whose. Then we start to have to implement more surveillance measures, freezing bank accounts, all the stuff you said. That's true, but your proposed alternative also involves telling people what to do.
So I'm trying
I mean, you're literally arguing about sexual liberation. The opposite of liberation is authoritarianism, or being told what to do, rules and laws.
So do you recognize that there's a difference between, like, humans do have a certain kind of normative or moral attitudes and instincts that they just have naturally. It's not something that an outside force has to impose. And the proof of this is when we look throughout world cultures, there are certain patterns and there are certain universality across cultures that it can't be socially constructed, because how did all these independent cultures arrive at the same practices? Like, for example, valuing innocence, valuing purity, looking down and having this kind of negative attitude towards promiscuity, cheating in a marriage, or even the institution of marriage itself, which requires certain sexual exclusivity. Why do we see this throughout cultures? It's because there's a biological component. And these things are universal, right?
It could be, but the question I'm asking you is, will you concede that Sharia law uses authoritarianism to hold family units and marriages together? And it sounds like you're saying no. You won't concede that. Okay, so
No,
I guess so we can move on from that point.
Because it's biological. I want you to also acknowledge, like,
you can force someone to do something that they're biologically inclined to do. You can force a hungry person to eat at gunpoint. It doesn't mean you're not forcing them.
Let me just think about it. You can force a hungry person to eat. But you don't have to put a gun to the person's head. He'll eat.
But you can.
I don't think you'd call that forcing it.
You wouldn't? You're saying so if I'm walking down the street and I see a hot guy and I think, well, I would like to have sex with that man. Then he pulls out a gun and says, "Bend over." Am I not being raped?
No, that's a thought versus an action. The example you gave
I was
earlier
already
a person's eating.
I was already going to have sex with him. I already planned to have sex with him. So I'm walking over to him to say, "Hey, do you want to have sex?" And then just as I get there, he pulls out a gun and says, "Pull down your pants." Even if I want to do what I'm doing, I'm still being coerced. I don't know.
Let's say I concede that. I still think that there's less force involved. There's less force by Islam on people as opposed to the modern nation state in order to keep people So I can concede this point that you're making about
Okay, so and you're basically saying it's easier to nip it in the bud and just keep the family unit together rather than deal with the fallout of all the complicated, messy stuff that happens if you don't.
yeah, that has happened. Yeah, it's what has happened in history.
Do you believe in the concept of a fake happy marriage? Like, do you think it's possible? So I understand that you don't think this is what is happening, but I think to your average, Westerner who believes in sexual liberation, we view those marriages held together by authority and coercion as fundamentally unhappy, even if the people in the marriage report being happy. We think that if a woman can't leave whenever she wants, that definitionally, that means it can't be a happy marriage because there's no way to know if she actually wants to be there.
So I think that people's individual experience of happiness is an important consideration in figuring out what moral rules to follow. But there are other major considerations as well, such as maintaining these kinds of biologically rooted institutions of marriage and family, where sometimes you have rules that might limit personal choice or personal pursuit of individual desire or individual happiness in order to further these kinds of broader goals, which are, again, they're biologically rooted, and they ultimately lead to, if you want to make it a purely utilitarian argument or consequentialist argument, you say ultimately it leads to more people who are happy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you will concede that without sexual liberation, women are individually possibly unhappier in their marriages, but that even the women in the society will be happier overall because the society will be better.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, look at this scenario. I can imagine a world where technology has advanced to such a degree that they can give you drugs where you are constantly experiencing an orgasm, and compare the happiness level of people in that society, whereas as opposed to today's society or a society that is traditional or pre-modern religious society. I think those societies are preferable and better than the constant orgasm society where people are as the happiest that they can possibly be. Would you agree with that?
I agree that a society where people are constantly having an orgasm is worse.
Orgasm or just bliss, just the maximum level of bliss that you can experience as an individual.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that. The Matrix society. Yeah, I wouldn't want that either.
Okay, so then it's just a matter of how far you're going to go, and what things do you want to preserve that the bliss society doesn't have.
But I don't think God is real. I think this is part of the disconnect here, is that you believe God is dead, and you believe God is the red pill. But I right, and I think
I don't know, a bliss society.
So I think.
Tell me, why don't you want them?
I don't know why that would be bad all the time. I don't know.
What was the problem with it?
You get the orgasm thing, that'd be weird. Nobody
because,
wants to do that all the time.
There's no struggle. There's nothing to do.
Every day, 24/7, that.
But it's maximum happiness.
The bliss society, just being zen.
You can do stuff.
I don't know why that'd be bad.
State of euphoria. You can live however you want, but it's just a constant state of euphoria. You won't be necessarily motivated to.
But it's the same reason
interact
I'm not
with
religious.
people.
The same reason I'm not religious, because
What do you mean by that?
I don't believe. I don't think.
Yeah, it's a thought experiment. It's a thought experiment to see
Well, I know, but it would be
understand.
The experiment would be: do I want to have bliss that is not connected to anything outside of my own delusion?
So you're acknowledging there's an inherent value to reality.
Yes.
That is like it's not religious.
But if
that is
reality
a
is bliss,
metaphysical claim, right?
so how's
To
that
say
bad?
that reality has some value. Well, what is
No,
that value?
Like, I think the only thing
no,
that
I'm
would
not
be
even saying
wrong
it
is if
as in
reality
a
is not
objective
bliss and
value.
you're
I'm
living
saying,
a bliss
I
life,
value
right?
it. And that's what same reason I don't
Because
Why?
drink
then you wouldn't be
drugs.
in reality.
Why?
I
But
don't drink or
if
I don't drink or do any
reality
drugs for
itself
treatment
is
because I
bliss,
don't want to feel
I don't see nothing
feelings
wrong with that.
that are completely unconnected to essentially other people or
But you see the analogy here, right? Like, I also
Yep.
am saying in my argument that marriage also has a value, and it's a value that transcends an individual's happiness or bliss.
yes, I
So
understand.
do you see the analogy?
Yes, I do see the analogy. But
It's
do
not.
you
I
see
didn't bring God into it, right? A non-religious person could make the same argument.
Yes, but do you see my counter analogy that a marriage that looks happy and feels happy, if it's held together by the woman being unable to leave,
That's a
might
bad
not be
thing.
real to me.
That's not real.
If I'm looking at Shaylin, my girlfriend, we're looking in each other's eyes, and if I know in the back of my mind, you can't afford to leave. You won't have the support of the community if you leave. You could be punished physically if you leave and shunned forever and never have another shot. You might not be able to get a job in our society. All those things to me undermine the reality of the relationship. It makes it feel like it's not real. I don't know if you love me or if you're scared of them.
Right,
I don't know
so
if you're having sex with me because you want to or because you have to.
no, like so. I think that you're trying to characterize like Islamic law. So there are a lot of details. It's not the case that a woman who is really not happy in her marriage, like she has no recourse. That's not true. She can leave, like under certain circumstances.
Okay, but what if I'm not in those certain circumstances? What if she's just not attracted to me anymore? Can she leave?
Again, there are circumstances she can offer.
I need you to answer this.
Yes, she can leave. Yes, she can.
she-
She can offer the dowry or
What,
mahar.
and if I say no,
Say
does
no,
she have
then
does she have a unilateral ability to just leave if she doesn't want to be with me anymore?
I'm of the position that that's not allowed in Sharia. Islam have disagreed with me.
Okay, so I just want to go with your position because I don't know anything about it. So I'm assuming I've heard you say before that you can't just leave because you feel like it, right? So if I'm with let's say Shaylin and I get married, she's my wife. I'm looking in her eyes. It could be that she doesn't want to be with me. She just doesn't feel like it anymore. And in your view, she can't leave. Also, I'm making
girlfriend.
No.
You're married. Okay.
Let's say we're married. Yeah. Okay. Also, is she obligated to provide sex for me?
Yeah, she's obligated, and you're also obligated as her husband to provide shelter and food, like regardless of whether you want to or not. So there are just duties. Well, I just want to make sure the audience understands, like, what we're talking about.
If she does not provide sex for me, am I at some point after chastising her for this, am I allowed to hit her for that?
Are you allowed to hit her if she refuses? So, like, you can, after a certain point, you can't force her. You can't, like, grab her and attack her.
But I can slap her.
No, you can't.
What can I do?
Yeah, you can.
How am I allowed to hit her?
You can, for example, spank her.
Okay, I can live with that. All right.
I mean, have you watched American films where you see all kinds of depictions of spanking of
How did I
women
get this off my
who
screen?
act in a certain
I have seen. I don't know if we're talking about the same films, but I have seen some depictions of spanking of women.
No, I'm talking about classic Hollywood. I'm talking about look at what John Wayne does in some of his movies.
Yes. It's like that. I understand. Okay,
so this is depicted in Hollywood.
Okay, so to tie together my reverse analogy, this sounds like a paradise for men. I can marry a woman. or a girl. I can marry if she is hit puberty. I can marry an 11-year-old. I can
I
finally
don't know
get
why
married.
that'd be a. Why would that be a paradise?
She is obligated to provide
You
sexual
think men are
motivation.
out here just
I
wanting to
can
do
hit
this
her
shit? Like
or
what?
spank her
Like
if she
okay,
does not.
I don't.
She can't leave
That's
if
weird.
she feels like it. She has to provide a argument to some authority if she wants to leave. And you're saying you're not bringing God into it, but the laws that we're following are all said to have been written by a prophet or come from God. So to me, that's the blue pill. That's the paradise. That's the happiness. I can do whatever I want. I can have sex whenever I want, and I assume if I want to leave her that I can, right?
No, how is this like a paradise? Like you have
It's a paradise for
to
men.
get married. No, to get married, you are obligated to provide a dowry. You have to get approval of a family,
Yeah.
her
Those are
family
that's
to
the
get
those.
married. You
I
have
understand
to,
those are the
no, you have
downside.
to, yeah,
I
these are,
I
well, you're not
Here, hold
mentioning
on
these.
real
So
quick.
you talked for a while. Let me respond to this kind of caricature that you've painted for your audience. Like all of these things that you find within Islam and Muslim societies, first of all, they're universal, by the way. Like
okay,
these are
but do can we
universal
do
values.
before
No, no,
before you
don't
start
interrupt. Don't interrupt.
before you start, will you acknowledge that everything I said would be allowed?
Um, yes,
And
I think I
my last question,
well
can I leave her whenever I want? Is that true? Because I said that, but I don't know if it's true.
leave her whenever you want.
If I don't,
Yes, you
if I'm
can
not,
divorce. You can
I can
divorce.
just I have unilateral right to just say I'm done with you with the blonde one. I'm done with the blonde one from Cuties. I'm done with you. I'm moving on.
Yeah, but you have a responsibility
You're too
towards the
old.
children.
Okay, sure.
You'd have
I just
custody of the children,
okay.
uh, and you'd
Okay,
be
so now I'm
financially responsible for that.
okay. So I'm not trying to say that you should agree with me. I'm more trying to provide you the Western liberal perspective of why what you're saying that sounds like the Matrix society where everything is fake and everyone's lying about what's happening to provide men with euphoria.
How is this euphoric? Like I told you, you ignored all of the responsibilities that men have, all of the duties that you have. Look, like imagine you're a ditch digger and
Yeah.
you have to go and every day from dawn till dusk dig ditches. Why? You have no other choice because you're married. You have to provide for your wife, maybe wives, maybe you have multiple wives, your children, and you can't opt out of that. Like you can't opt out of that manual labor for the rest of your life. This is like paradise according to your definition. Like Islam obligates
All
certain.
the cuties. I can marry all the cuties. Listen, let's go through your I want to go through
No,
your
no, you're
counter
interrupting
arc.
me. Let me give you a
Okay,
counter
okay.
argument. Like you've talked
Sure.
for a while now, so let me
I have.
respond.
That's
So
fair.
the thing is that these are duties on both sides, husband and wife, and duties require toil. They require work. So you can't just give this kind of feminist portrayal of what Islam is just a oppression of women and men are living in a paradise of pleasure. That's just that's an orientalist depiction of what Islam is. Yes, you have certain rights and duties that are not the same for men and women because the genders are different, but there are an there's parity to a certain extent between the amount of toil and responsibility and duties that each gender has. And this is not just Islam's conception of marriage. It's not just Islam's conception of family. You find a lot of parallels within Christianity, within Judaism, especially when you look at pre-modern, pre-enlightenment religions. You find parallels in Hinduism and Buddhism. You find parallels in all of these pre-modern societies. It's only within the modern period where this kind, partly due to technology, where this kind of sexual liberation has proliferated. The kind of sexual liberation that you're advocating for would allow, for example, a husband, he knocks some woman up and he is able to just go and live his own life. He doesn't have a responsibility to provide for his children. He doesn't have a responsibility to provide for the person that he knocked up because there's no commitment, there's no marriage that is tying him to the reproductive act. You this leads to a kind of dystopia. Why? Because then that single mother is having to raise that child on her own. She depends on the welfare state to provide. And children who are born and who are raised in these single parent households, they are more likely, far more likely to suffer from mental disorders. They're more likely to drop out of school. They're more likely to get into drugs. They're more likely to fall into crime. They're more likely to be on antidepressants, to be alcoholics, and on and on and on. All of these kinds of social problems are on the rise because of single motherhood. And this is not like you can read Freakonomics. That was a best-selling book that talks about all of these problems that come from single parenthood. So this is the kind of world. And then what does the rest of society have to do? The rest of society has to pay tax money to this massive bureaucratic surveillance police state to manage all of the increase in crime, mental dysfunction, unemployment that is caused because of sexual liberation. That's like, just go and look up videos of Philadelphia, downtown Chicago, the slums of New York, and all of these major cities full of sexual liberation, by the way. But you have all of these social problems that are rotting away at modern civilization. And I don't know why you're not willing to acknowledge the link between sexual liberation and all of these social ills. This is a massive blue pill.
I'm happy to acknowledge the link between those two. My problem is that the alternative is worse. And so again, like, it's not that I as a feminist like seeing single mothers and you know, people being poor and whatever other problems you're talking about. It's that I don't think that forcing women into what I view as essentially sex slavery is I think that's worse.
That's
So
not,
I agree.
that's a straw man. Islam does not, first of all, okay, Islam does not have this kind of idea that you're portraying as. But here's a question.
I view it as sex slavery.
Fine, put Islam aside. What is your solution to these problems? Is it cutting or limiting sexual liberty, or do you have some other solution?
Okay. I don't agree with your framing of them as problems, is the thing. So like, imagine a society that is even more restrictive and more fundamentalist than the one that you're than Sharia law. So let's say I start a religion where I'm like, you Muslims, you're the perverted weirdos. You are the sexually liberated ones. So I have a society where you have to wear like a special device that prevents you from thinking about sex unless you get permission, or like a device on your genitals that prevents them from getting aroused unless you get permission from like the elders and the tribe. And if you don't have this device, then the only reason, you must be some kind of heathen or pervert. Basically, if you could lock down everything and force people to conform to religious law 100% without even being able to deviate in any way, I think at some point you would be like, well, some amount of freedom to be able to break the law, even if it's not good to break the law, even if you're going to be punished for it. We still need some sort of autonomy.
Yeah, I completely agree. My whole argument is against totalitarian control.
So it's really about how much autonomy.
Like, you have I completely value
right, but
autonomy. Islam values autonomy, but
I know, but
it can't be unrestricted. And that's why I'm asking you, what are the restrictions on autonomy? And you're not answering that question.
So like, if women were chained up at all times, let's say I make a new religion and I say women have to have a chain around their necks at all times. This holds families together. This prevents adultery. This prevents straying. Eventually the woman will even forget what the outside of the house looks like, so she's not going to leave. And if she wants to leave, like, blah blah. And no. If you would make a special appeal, maybe we'll let you off your chain. But essentially, someone else is holding the key. I think you would agree that
Yeah, I would.
That would
but
that would be going too far. Okay,
that doesn't cause a problem for my position, though.
Just let me get through this. I'm not trying to cause a problem for your position. Your position is valid. I just don't like it. I'm trying to explain why I don't like it. I understand that your position is internally consistent. I'm not trying to attack it or say that even that you're wrong. I'm saying that it's a matter of preference, and I want to just explain why this is my preference, and I want to explain how you sound to me from my perspective. So imagine
Before you finish, can I just
Yeah.
say immediately, with these thought experiments and examples that
Yeah.
you're giving, they're
Yeah.
not tied to human biology. The restrictions that I mentioned do have a connection to human biology that are universal. That's a fundamental difference why these examples you're giving are disanalogous. Like, people naturally want to
that's
move
fine.
around. You can't chain them
Well,
and expect that to be functional.
Humans have been chaining each other up for a long time. Maybe there's not a biological imperative to put a chain around somebody else's neck, but maybe there is. I don't know. It happens across cultures.
You characterize marriage as slavery. Like, you characterize marriage as like putting a chain around someone's neck. That's completely disanalogous. Like, marriage, pair bonding is something that is organic, biologically rooted. That's something that women want to do. Women want to be taken care of.
But it's also something that. But you're also saying
it to them sexually. Like, that's these are
But I think
realities.
You're saying that's something women want to do on a species level, but on an individual level, they might have to be forced.
all right.
No, Islam
Or
doesn't force women to get married. Like, if you want to be sexually active, in Islam, it has to be within a marriage, because
they're obligated by religious law to provide sex, and sex is the most biologically reinforced behavior there is. But sometimes you have to force someone.
Are we gonna just leave
if you want to have sex with them.
around then?
If you want to
Yeah,
guarantee you're going to have sex
you
with
have to
them whenever
force
you
people. You have to force people to pay child support. You have to force people to.
Absolutely.
If a mother doesn't take care of her child, she has to be forced to do that.
I'm responding to your biological. I'm responding to your biologically motivated argument by saying that even Sharia law tells people that they have to do things that they're very biologically motivated to do, like have sex. That sometimes people don't want.
It's more rational. That's why it's more rational. It's getting people to do things. It's incentivizing behaviors that are biological. Like, you as a person might not consciously realize why a certain way of life is going to make you happier, and so you might not choose it. You might not prefer that way of life.
I agree with that.
So your own personal happiness actually
needs to be set
actually
aside.
It needs to be set aside, and that's the whole point of revelation. Like, there's guidance from God, who has created us, who sets us a kind of model for life. It's not a restrictive, like, we're going to chain your neck to a heater in a basement or dungeon.
It's a bit of a stretch to say that a behavior that does not make the individual happy, but is for the betterment of society, to still call that biologically motivated.
I did not say that.
Okay.
Some people can be unhappy, but the majority of people will be happy. The majority of people in these kinds of marriages, as defined by Islam, will be happier than the kinds of marriages
But how would you know they're happy?
Relationships that exist
If they can't get out of it, how do you know they're happy?
I'll make that.
I think that's the point, right?
But there's more to life than happiness.
No, I know. So even that.
So they will be happier, but they will be less free. And anytime you put me,
Wait, why are you just giving them the happiness thing? How do you know they'll be happy?
This is my answer to the debate title. Is anytime I have to choose between happiness and freedom, I'm going to choose freedom. To me,
so you acknowledge that it's going to make you personally unhappy. It potentially will make you unhappier. It potentially will destroy society. Like, we're all going to basically become these atomized individuals.
Why would you have to choose between the two?
Who are
I don't know. I don't
in our
agree
basements
with
watching Netflix, whether
no,
it's like
I
QD or
don't.
VR or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Or
the
both.
kind of society, or both. That's the kind of society that there's a lot of freedom in that society. But I think most people would find that horrifying.
I don't know. But I want to walk you through my now.
You don't? No, but no, answer. Do you think most people would find that horrifying?
If most people find it horrifying, they probably won't do it.
No, but
Right.
Like, do you think?
I
Because
think-
I want to know
part
how in touch you are with how people around the world actually feel about this topic.
Well, I think part of what you're horrified by is that people aren't horrified. So I don't.
No, they are. The majority of people are horrified. It's like a very small segment of Western educated people who have this harm principle as the end-all be-all of morality because they've been indoctrinated basically to accept that as the the only thing that matters. Morally. Everyone outside of
everybody's indoctrinated.
No, it's a small percentage. Like we can talk in numbers.
Everybody's indoctrinated with something.
No, the things that I'm describing are natural. Like this is, that's why they're universal. People are born like that.
You grew up in Texas, but you think that it's okay for society to execute gay people if they have sex. You're indoctrinated, just like I am.
It's not just Muslim. Look at the majority of cultures and religions. You'll find people agree with that position. So how is everyone indoctrinated except like a small minority?
No, I agree. I'm indoctrinated. I'm just saying you are too.
I can connect all of these kinds of values that you want to. No, you can't. You can't connect homosexuality to a natural instinct that people have. You can't connect like furries to a natural instinct that people have.
Why not? People play, people imitate. People
Right, people are doing it. So what's the difference? If they're doing it, then
it's a pretty easy one.
But bestiality, you're saying bestiality is natural, like being attracted and
people are doing it. It makes it natural.
You're saying that, and you think that.
Like, why would they have that urge? Ain't that natural?
No, stop changing the question. Answer the question. Do you think it's natural to be attracted to animals? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I would say it's weird.
So there's no like mental dysfunction with being.
Mental dysfunctions can be naturally occurring. I don't agree that means it's unnatural to have mental dysfunction. Mental
bestiality. What about necrophilia? Like, is that? So with the chicken example that I gave, you don't find any moral problem with it, obviously. But what about like?
I don't agree. I don't equate disgust to immorality. But I want to walk you through I want to explain this. I'm not saying this to tell you that you're wrong. I'm saying this to tell you how you sound to me. I want you to picture that I start a new religion. And in my new religion, women have to have a chain around their neck at all times and have to remain in the home. You have to concede that this would remove all instances of adultery. It would force marriages to stay together as long as the man is satisfied. It would solve any remaining problems that fundamentalist societies have. Oh, and you mentioned Judaism and Christianity. I have nothing against Islam specifically. I lived in or worked in Beverly Hills for many years, and I was friends with a lot of Persian Jews there, and I was absolutely horrified by their society, even in LA. I was constantly trying to sexually liberate them. I did my best.
They're pretty sexually liberated, right? I didn't understand what you mean by that. But anyway, continue with your example.
Not really. Yeah, okay. Not to my liking. So in this super fundamentalist society, where we don't just tell people you have to follow the rules, we make them follow the rules by whatever means are necessary. You can imagine your response to that being like, well, yeah, you're following the rules. There's no such thing as divorce anymore at all. Families are kept together. Everything is on paper perfect, but there's a level of oversight and force being used that I'm not comfortable with.
I'm not comfortable with it either.
Right. No, I'm saying that would be your reaction to that, to a super a society that basically enslaves its women literally and tells them you have to follow the rules. There's a point at which you and Muslims across the world and fundamentalist religious people across the world would be like, well, now you've gone too far. Yes, the rules are being followed, but it's too much. People need a certain level of autonomy. And it's the same reason we don't put a limiter on your car to make it so you can't go over the speed limit. There's just a certain amount of freedom, even if we're going to punish people for exercising it, that we want to give people. So to me, while I agree that it would be nice if everybody were married in family units, I don't care if they're heterosexual marriages, but it would be nice if there were family units, that children always had parents, there was always food on the table, the father always cared about the children, and felt that his life's duty is to toil for those children and provide food and shelter, and women always wanted to have sex and were available for sex. I mean, yeah, all of that sounds great, but to the feminist, the metaphorical chain around the neck that provides that is unacceptable, and the expectations of men do not even it out.
So do you think that husbands being required to provide child support is slavery? Because sometimes it's 20 years of child support. How is that not slavery?
I think that when
I don't know
you
about
have
slavery though.
unprotected
That's
sex
a little.
or try to have protected sex and fail,
It's kind of a
you
reach, but
have an obligation to the person that is
Right.
born out of that.
So that is a restriction, right? That is a restriction
I'm not
of freedom.
yeah, absolutely.
No, but you just
And
said that. You just said that there's a situation where freedom is limited. You consider that essentially slavery, because the kinds of restrictions I'm talking about within
I believe in
Islam or
laws.
traditional. So Islam and traditional religion, they have laws, and these are the things
Absolutely.
that restrict personal freedom. But you're
I'm not
characterizing those as slavery.
Yeah,
But
because
these other things, like some formula that you gave, you consent to consensual sex. Therefore, like, where is that coming from? Why
I mean,
would
you
we
can
agree to
imagine,
that?
you can imagine the spectrum from there are no laws at all, and everybody can literally do whatever they want at all times, no repercussions, no government, total anarchy, to slavery.
We're both in between that. We're both in
Yes.
between.
Absolutely, I agree. I don't think it is literally slavery. I'm saying from where I want to be on the freedom oversight spectrum, what you're describing sounds like slavery for women and a paradise for men.
But I just explained how that's not the case. Like, you have all these obligations.
bro, I don't even see how would that be a
Remember the ditch
paradise for
digging
men
for
though.
guy who has
Yeah.
to dig ditches. Like, that's the reality. Actually, for most men in society, that was the reality. They couldn't like sit in a nice, cushy condition of apartment and stream Twitch or stream on Twitch, or like me, have a YouTube channel and just live a cozy life. You have to actually go and toil. Sometimes you have to you're conscripted into the army, and you literally have to die for your family and for your society.
I think we
Like,
have
this-
we
this-
have
this,
the
like,
draft.
Go ahead, brother.
What is this
You-
amazing
you-
utopia
Let 'em
of
know.
men that you're describing? Like, I don't understand. And
Well,
then
you
also,
registered for the draft in the United States, so you can also be conscripted. And also, as you pointed out
what's wrong
yourself,
with that?
that you're making claims about one culture that are the same in both cultures. You have to dig ditches there.
Women's
If
like
you're a
this.
ditch digger
I'm
here,
glad I can't
you have a
sell.
kid, and you get surveilled by the government, and they decide that you have to pay child support. You got to dig ditches here too.
Yeah, so how can you agree with those kinds of restrictions on men, like being required to pay child support, being required to provide, basically at threat of being thrown in prison if
Okay.
you miss the child support pay? You agree with that?
I can
that's not slavery. But then you have a problem
Yes.
like with Islamic marriage requirements. And why are you focusing
Yeah, so
on
I don't see how you call it
One-
slavery.
because each of us has a line past which we say, you know what, that sounds like slavery to me. Okay,
Yeah, but
and
I've
your
explained
line.
why. Like, the difference
I
between
can explain.
me and
I
you.
can explain. I
The
can
difference
explain why
between me and
too.
you is that I've pointed to how the kind of line that you've drawn leads to all kinds of societal dysfunction.
Well, that's a
and
reverse
disaster,
engineer-
chaos,
but that's-
and
but-
totalitarianism. That's what your line leads
that's
to. That's the
backwards.
problem.
That's a backwards way of constructing your definition of slavery. My definition of slavery is based on how are people being treated, not what happens if we don't treat them that way. So from that perspective, both of us have a line that we won't cross, that you will acknowledge that there is a certain amount
No,
of
bro.
authoritarianism and lack of autonomy that you're not comfortable with, even if it makes people follow the law. For me, that line is
Let's go.
you
Jones.
can't have the government telling women that they have
Ah,
to have
shit. I
sex.
thought we took more than that.
What
you
government
can't have
says that? That's not in Islam. You're
you have to have
strawmanning
sex with
Islam.
you have to have sex with your husband.
You don't have to get married. If you get married, if you
Yes, if you
choose,
get- okay.
if you willingly choose to get
You're-
married, then there are
you-
obligations that come with that. But there's no
Just-
obligation.
listen,
Bro, that makes
to get
sense.
married.
Unless you go do an
Make
open
sure you
marriage.
convince each other.
Like, that's fucked up. You gonna marry
Okay.
somebody and then they ain't gonna
There's
give them nothing.
absolutely no way
Open
that
that
you are going
motherfucker
to
up
come
there.
out of this conversation being any more like me, and I'm not going to come out of it being any more like
I'm not
you.
trying
All
to
we
convince you. I'm not trying
well
to
then stop
convince you.
arguing with me.
No,
and
I'm trying to respond to the things that you're actually saying.
I want you to understand that the distinction you're making between society, a government forcing women to have sex, or forcing
Shit, I
women to
got
have
you. Got
sex
too
with their
much there.
husband, or forcing them to have sex with their husbands, which to
You're fine
you
with,
think
you're fine with
which
forcing
Like, I don't wanna come all
husbands
the way
to
back over
provide
here.
listen,
child
listen,
support.
will you
Oh,
will
you
you
have to.
will you listen to me for a second? You're making a huge distinction between these two as though they're going
What
to
else?
strike me as very different. They're exactly the same. I have no emotional
Yeah,
response.
we can do that.
There's nothing
We still
different to
gotta go
me
get
as being
13
forced to have
too.
sex with your neighbor and being forced to have sex with your husband. Because as you pointed out, I am a liberal feminist. That's just
So,
that's just how I think. So
But no,
the
but
government
let's stick
the
to
government can force you to pay for kids that you've had. To me, yes, it's not slavery. The government can force you to have sex with your spouse. To me, is slavery. That's just where I draw the line, and I'm not going to be able.
Sense.
It may not
doesn't,
make
like,
sense. It may
how
not
is
make.
it, like, the psychological toll could be much worse. Like
It could be.
it's like
Absolutely.
you're appealing to
The
some
psychological.
you're appealing to something metaphysical without any kind of justification, rational, empirical, or otherwise. Like
Well,
why is
just-
there a distinction here? Is it because of some kind of harm, like the woman is
No.
more greatly
No.
harmed? Okay, it's not in
No.
terms of harm. So then what is the
This is-
distinction between the husband being required to provide child support and all of those financial duties that he is that he has to
I
do
understand the question.
versus okay, then
I
what's the
get it.
difference?
I-
What's the difference?
The difference is the same difference between the same way that necrophilia just horrifies you, even if there were not a specific rule against it in the Quran, you would still not be in favor of people practicing necrophilia. Well, that's not true because there is a victim when you're being raped by your husband.
You're a victim if you're being forced to pay
Yes.
child support. You're being raped
No,
because
no,
you're being raped by you might have to go to a job.
True.
You're also being physically
I think
tasked.
I think we're just coming down to a fundamental belief that I believe that coerced or forced sex, even with your husband, is just an unacceptable thing to have happen in society. I don't. It's just rape, and I don't
you
have a.
have a problem with how
I
you're
don't have an
defining
empirical. I
rape.
don't.
But forced labor, you're okay with. You're okay with forced labor.
I'm okay with debt, and I'm okay
No, it's
with
forced labor. You
Well,
have to
also-
pay child support, otherwise you will be put in prison. So that's forced
are-
labor.
again?
So that
do
means
you
you're
want to-
forced slavery. You're pro-slavery then?
Are you trying to understand me?
Yeah, I am.
I don't
I'm
think
deeply.
you are. I think
no,
you're-
I deeply
think-
want to understand how you make this distinction. You are fine with forced labor. I think that's called slavery. But you're not fine with
I listen.
marriage,
If
sex
you were
and
not,
marriage.
if you did not grow up in Texas, then I would believe what you're saying. But if you were making the claim that you don't understand, you literally don't understand why Americans, on average, have a different emotional reaction to being told you have to have sex with your husband versus you have to pay child support for your kids. If you are genuinely saying that you don't understand why I feel differently about, and I can try to explain it to you, but not while you're like doing
explain
whatever
it.
it is.
Explain it.
In America, legally and morally and ethically, you know, because you're an American, like it or not, you know that is defined as rape.
Is it? Like, I think it depends on the state. And I think it depends on
No,
new laws.
you
I don't think that's historically been the case.
Historically, I think in like 1982, it became,
Because you think
it
that
became illegal to rape your wife, and
so
you can be charged with rape for forcing your spouse to have sex.
what do you mean by force? Like, force, does that mean like she just prefers not to? And
Are
she
you
does that-
are you pretending that you're not American? Like, I know.
No,
that
I just
you
want to know the
I-
history of the law. I just want to know
I
the
know.
history. Because
I know.
there's
I know we're on
definitions
you know,
of consent. You're a feminist, right? So you understand how definitions of consent have evolved over American history, right? And the different waves of history.
I need you to
waves of
stop.
feminism.
I need you to stop pretending you don't understand American liberalism.
No, I understand it very well.
I know you do. So when you say, well, what's the difference between having to pay child support and having to fuck your husband I swore. Having to pay child support and having to have sex with your husband whenever he wants, you know the difference.
I know the difference
I
in
know
American
you know.
law, but I'm trying
You
to
know
understand the moral
but you're
basis
saying
for the difference.
you're saying you genuinely don't understand American psychology enough to understand why that just feels different to me.
So it doesn't really matter to me like how you personally feel about it, whether it's because of your cultural upbringing or your feminism or liberalism or whatever. I'm trying to analyze. I'm trying to analyze the underlying moral logic. That's what I'm trying to understand.
That's fine. We can do we can do that, but you have to first accept that this is how I feel. You know this is how I feel. And
no, I acknowledge.
You probably know
your feelings.
why.
Look, like me,
Okay.
like with me, okay, I also at one point was a feminist. I also was very liberal, Harvard educated, going through American society. I would probably agree with many of your views, but then I was confronted with the fact that many of these liberal views are logically contradictory, or they are very idiosyncratic compared to the way that most people understand in the world, present and throughout history. Most people understand morality. So I was confronted with this, and I had to reflect, okay, maybe the way that I personally feel is not correct. Maybe I have to explore this and try to be self-critical,
Feels over
come
reels.
to a rationally
Fresh and
consistent
fit.
position. So I went through that, and I think that's very healthy. Everyone.
You want me to go.
I'm sure you've gone. I'm sure you have gone through that. I'm sure
I
you have
and
gone through that.
I came out
With different issues. So I just wanted to have that kind of discussion about this particular issue.
Okay. So
2 minutes left for Q&A.
okay. So in 1 minute. I don't agree with your kind of baseline argument that women need to be told what's best for them.
Bigger
I
than
think
I
that
thought.
is anti-woman, anti-human.
Define woman.
XX.
That's not a got you for you, right?
Oh no, it's fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Or has a vagina or whatever.
Okay.
But I'm saying girls and women, as they hit puberty and become adults, I don't believe that for society's sake they need to be told what's best for them. They need to be told when they should have sex, who they should marry, or when they should not be able to leave the marriage or whatever else. I don't agree with that. I agree, and I don't even agree that they will be happier if you force them to. I think they will say they are happier because essentially there is a chain around their neck, and any sex that is had in that situation, I think, is rape. And in a way, I'm saying that all sex in all fundamentalist religious societies, even if it appears consensual in the moment, is to me rape. It's all rape because I don't. Can women vote?
Right, so
Could women?
that's
could
over
women
a minute.
vote?
That's over a minute. So the
My
thing
last
about
question is: could women vote to change these rules?
the thing is that you recognize that within feminist theory, there are feminists who say that there is no such thing as consensual heterosexual sex. It's all rape because of the power disparity within society, in our patriarchal societies, with men in power over women, that women cannot meaningfully consent to any kind of heterosexual behavior, and therefore all heterosexual behavior within Western society today is considered rape. So it seems like your logic is along those lines. Anytime a man has sex with a woman would be considered rape under your the way that you've defined sexual liberation. So, I mean, there's another point that I wanted to make actually. Like, you believe, like,
I think that's what he's saying, though, ain't it?
That we've discussed, like, sexual liberation can be compared to like free market capitalism. Free market capitalism, I'm not a proponent of. I'm not a fan of. I think it leads to a lot of wealth disparity. It leads to a lot of injustice, and you have the 1% dominating all the wealth in the world at the expense of poverty for everyone else, basically poverty and suffering. So free market capitalism, bad. But sexual liberation actually does the same thing, because you have certain percentage of the most attractive men who will monopolize sex with most women. People, the 1%, such as Max himself. So,
well, yeah, I don't want to say anything.
Right. So, but you would, I think that people who have this opposition to free market capitalism and prefer some kind of, whether we want to call it socialism or redistribution of wealth in order to increase equality, they should have to be
a
consistent.
Redistribution of women.
Not redistribution in the sense of like, yeah, here's prostitutes for everyone. That could be like a solution that the West might take up. But you could also impose like certain kinds of rules, like you have to be married, you have a limitation on the number of sexual partners because there's sexual exclusivity in marriage. Things like that is a type of redistribution of sex in society.
So redistribution of women as a commodity, but in a sexually liberated society, men are also a commodity. Sex is provided by both sexes.
Yeah. So I mean, isn't that a more just system, as opposed to the sexual liberation that you've been advocating?
No, because I still think it's all rape. But again, that's just my definition. I'm not saying you're like objectively wrong. It's just
you are saying that.
No, it's just I just see things differently from you. That's all. I'm not saying that your positions are not internally consistent. I believe that they are for the most part. I just don't like it, is what it comes down to. I just don't want it.
Okay, I can live with that as long as I'm being consistent and rational. But I mean, I can't return the statement, though. I don't think you're being consistent. I think that you didn't really distinguish how forced labor for men is somehow, which is essentially slavery. How is somehow
would you
bad
rather
for
would you rather
men.
be forced to dig a ditch or to have sex with somebody you don't want to have sex with?
No, if I marry someone,
Neither.
I
And then you no
recognize
longer
that
want- and you-
just
and
like
then you
any
no longer-
kind of
and
contract,
then you-
like I
and
make
then
a contract with you to mow your lawn every week, and then some days I just don't want to mow your lawn, but the contract is there. If I don't meet the
So in-
contract,
so in the
you can sue
hypothetical-
me, and if I don't pay up, I can be put in prison, and if I don't,
Okay.
if I refuse
in
to
the-
comply
in the
with police, I can be
hypothetical-
shot dead. So
in the hypothetical-
I'm being forced to abide by the
I get what you're
contract I
saying.
made. No, you
I hear
keep
you.
interrupting me. Like, let me
Because
finish my point.
because you're changing the subject. In the
Never
hypothetical,
let you guys get into this topic.
You've signed two contracts. One is a marriage contract, and one is a mowing the lawn contract. Do you want to, if you had a get out of jail card for one of them, so you can either spend a year mowing the lawn you don't want to mow, or you can spend a year having sex with somebody every night that you don't want to have sex with anymore, you find them unattractive, you hate them. Which contract would you rather get out of?
I mean, I'd have to think about
Both.
it, but they're both coercive. That's my point.
I'm saying, would you rather do coerced labor or coerced sex? Which do you think would impact you more negatively?
I think that it would be the coerced labor.
Both. Both of them.
We can jump into the Q&A.
Right there.
You want to say,
I don't
folks,
know why y'all
our
be giving them all
guests are
this.
linked in the description. We highly encourage you. You can hear plenty more where that came from, as we really do appreciate our guests. And that includes at the podcast. We put our guest links in the description box there, too, if you're listening via podcast. This one coming in from Orthodox Chad. Thanks for your question. Says, I'm an Orthodox Christian, but Daniel looks like a Chad right now. And Can Fight says, why is Daniel against the welfare state when one of the pillars of Islam is zakat, let me know if I pronounce this right, or almsgiving? Shouldn't he support giving to the needy?
Yeah, I absolutely support giving to the needy. It's something that is required within Islam, but that's not equivalent to the welfare state. Like when you take zakat, for example, it is it's not an income tax. You have to pay 2.5% of your excess wealth. So like if you have $100,000 in your bank account, and you pay 2.5% of that after a year, like it's money after your expenses. So it's like a wealth tax in a way, and that goes straight to the needy and the poor and the orphans, as opposed to being taxed 40% of your income or even more in certain socialist states.
I like that.
I think that is a more totalitarian and a more coercive, all-encompassing kind of tax on people compared to zakat. So it's not an either-or issue.
This is coming in from 20 Faces. This is for you, Mr. Girl. They say, what is our sexuality meant to be liberated from, and what are the boundaries of this liberation? Just the harm principle?
Daniel Hakikuchu.
Gotcha.
What's it meant to be liberated from?
Moments like this.
Yeah, just
I'm glad I consume.
authoritarianism and government overreach into the bedroom.
Gotcha. Man, this one coming in from Anomic. Anomic says, Mr. Girl, do you think, quote, do what thou wilt is a good standard? Any idea who came up with that idea? So then that said, Daniel, I'm no Muslim, but as a Catholic, I'd rather said I find you persuasive.
Okay.
No, I don't think it's a good standard. I think there needs to be more nuance there. As I said, that I think it's a bit of a straw man to say that if you're against slapping a woman who won't have sex with her husband and that being okay, then surely you're okay with bestiality and necrophilia, spanking a woman because she won't have sex with you, and basically coercing her into sex, and she's not allowed to leave, and she's not allowed to vote, and all this other stuff. To say that must mean that I'm okay with necrophilia and bestiality and incest is preposterous. There is a big gray area in between those two. And
but why?
And I understand you're making a slippery slope argument. I just think you're wrong.
I should also just add, we can respond to answers, right? So
Sure.
Islam also forces men to have sex with their wives, right? Because
the men can unilaterally leave.
No, they can't leave because
the marriage.
They can, but it's more complicated because
But
if they leave the marriage, they have to pay another dowry, and if they can't afford another dowry, then they will not be able to access sex at all. So it is a coerced situation where they have to have a certain amount of sex with their wives, and their wives can demand it, and if they don't provide it, the women can divorce the husband.
They can beat
so
the man.
It's actually a two-way street.
This one coming in from Anomic as well says, just doing it because it feels good isn't true in any context. Eating, even exercising, out of moderation, or I think they mean beyond moderation, is harmful. Is sex immune from this?
No, you can get addicted to sex, just like anything else. No, I agree with Daniel here that if your use of sex or pornography it can of course get obsessive to the point where it's disrupting your life.
You got it. This one coming in from Chris G. Thanks for your question. Says, you say sexual liberation is harmful. Repressing your sexuality can be remarkably dangerous and harmful, Daniel. Suicide rates show this. No middle ground?
No, I agree that, and I said it throughout the debate, that Islam promotes healthy sexuality. You're not supposed to repress your sexuality, but it has to be channeled through marriage. because unrestrained sexuality leads to a lot of spiritual problems, blackens the soul, etc. But putting those religious arguments aside, it also creates all kinds of havoc within society. So I'm not like a Victorian Christian, like in the sense that or even Christians, I think generally believe that even within marriage, the sex act is something that is, less than ideal or dirty or filthy. But in Islam, that's not the case. Sex is seen as a beautiful thing when it's done between a husband and wife within marriage, and it's something that is actually rewarded by God in the afterlife. Having sex with your spouse is rewarded as a good deed in Islam. So I think that's a big stereotype that people might have about Islam, that somehow we're against sex. No, sex is healthy, it's important, but it needs to be channeled in the right way. And in fact, the argument I made at the end of the open discussion was that there is more repression of healthy sexuality when you sexually liberate people, because again, you have this monopoly by a very small percentage of society, males in society, that are dominating the sexual market.
Bro, that's what I think would happen. I
And
think a group of guys
sexual
came together and they
liberation
was
is
like,
leading
bro,
to less sex
Tom's
for
getting all the
people
girls. How can we
than
stop this from happening?
comparative traditional societies. So
Let's
this
do
is actually another
marriages.
major argument against
And then let's make
sexual
it bad
liberation.
for him to be able to have
Kate
it with
asks
more than
for
one
you, Mr.
person.
Grill, why is freedom
So then
more
we all could have
valuable
some. They
than
could leave. They
atheist
could leave some over
paradigm
for
than
the rest of the
happiness?
guys. That's exactly what happened. I figured it out.
Maybe it's
Y'all
better
are welcome.
to differentiate between happiness and pleasure, and say that I think a more long-term, kind of what Daniel's alluding to, a long-term happiness encompasses some amount of struggle and work, and that getting everything you want at the moment you want it is more akin to pleasure. And there's a place for that, but being in a jail where you are forced to feel good 24 hours a day also sounds like a kind of hell to me.
Yeah, you're in a
This one
jail.
coming in from Louis Preciado says, please be sure to smash the like button. Thanks for your support, Louis. And Anamic, thanks for your support as well. Says, and then they asked a question too.
What's
They said,
that? I was at 13.
if my
right?
kids can't, I think they're trying to
Yeah, I was at 13.
basically give a parody argument. I can't remember who made this argument though. So they said, if my kids can't voluntarily leave my household, I can't know if they really love me. And so, was there a way? Do either of you register for them?
Yeah. I think that's a challenge to me. No, you can't know if they really love you. You'll find out how your kids feel about you
When they grow up.
just like my parents did.
You got it. This one from Joe Schwartz says, "What is your favorite video game? Are you guys playing? You guys play more contemporary stuff or
Old school. So I grew up playing in like the regular NES system and played Super Nintendo at one point, or I had a Super Nintendo rather. I liked to play Donkey Kong Country, those types of games. But then as an adult, I liked StarCraft 2 and Age of Empires. So, but I'm not like a gamer. I don't like spend much time, but I do enjoy those games.
The Last of Us.
Nice. Well, thank you very much. This one, Zagros Ozcan says, actually, even if he is conscripted, he can present religious reasons to get out of fighting. They instead give you some of the field menial job.
Yeah, I mean I guess that's directed towards me, but like, do we consider it slavery that in Islam, for example, men are required to defend the nation or society through war and through
I guess I already did this.
military service? Do we consider that slavery? Like, is that, did
my
men
bad, Joe.
come up with this idea to like harm women by requiring themselves to go fight in war and die and become like the majority of casualties in war between societies? Like, this idea that Islam is just created to prefer the interests or the pleasure of men, I think this is not founded when we consider things like required military service of men, not women, within Islam.
I would rebut that. That I still think that fundamentalist religion is the ultimate blue pill. That you get to own women essentially and girls if that's what you're interested in. They have to have sex with you. You can spank them if they don't, and they can't leave. And then you believe that you are being encouraged to do this and rewarded by an all-powerful being that I don't believe exists, and that you will go to a paradise where you will experience infinite bliss, which I also don't believe exists.
This one coming in from Joe Schwartz. Interesting one. They say, Daniel, what's your favorite thing about liberalism? Mr. Girl, what is your favorite thing about Islam?
My favorite thing is, I mean, I wouldn't say it's my favorite thing about liberalism. I guess it is technically about liberalism because I think liberty and equality are important values. I do value autonomy, personal choice, and those things are found in Islam. So I do think that there's overlap between Islam and liberalism. It's just that liberalism goes too far and says that it's all about freedom and equality, and that ends up destroying human society. So that's essentially my critique of liberalism.
My favorite thing about Islam is probably people waking up thinking about what good they can do for themselves or their communities or the human race. I don't think that enough people in liberal societies shoulder that duty or burden.
You got it. This one from Anomic as well says, Mr. Girl, is MGTOW? Are you one of the men going their own way? I didn't know that.
No.
Okay.
I don't know what I said that made them say that. My views about I'm pretty much a gender abolitionist for the most part. You asked earlier, my definition of women and men are like either defined by genitals or chromosomes, something simple and identifiable that we all use in day-to-day life. But I don't believe that men and women should have separate bathrooms or separate locker rooms. I do think they should have separate sports teams. But generally, I want us to move toward treating everybody the same.
Got it. They also said, I don't understand this. They say no difference between a neighbor and a husband to a woman. Do you guys know what they're getting at there?
I said being forced to have sex with your husband to me is akin to being forced to have sex with your neighbor, meaning that consent should be continuous, and that you cannot consent to sex 10 years in advance. You can't even consent to sex 10 minutes in advance, or 10 seconds in advance. So that just because you sign a contract saying you're going to have sex with somebody, if you enforce that contract, it is the same amount of rape as if you tell a woman that she has to have sex with somebody she has not ever been sexually interested in.
Gotcha. And Zoe, thanks for your question, says, Daniel, can Muslim women discipline men, such as spanking, if they don't provide enough sex?
No, they cannot. It's like a one-way street. But if the husband is not providing adequate sex, then this is a legitimate claim that she can take to authorities, and the authority can rule in her favor that her husband is not providing her with what she's required, and the judge can issue a divorce. And the man has to comply with that kind of separation decreed by the judge. And if he doesn't, then essentially the police can come and forcefully beat the husband if he doesn't, comply with the judge's order. They can imprison him. So the husband is also subject to violence if he refuses to comply in that scenario.
You got it, and thank you very much for your question. This is coming in from Xavier Relish. Somewhat reminding me of what came up earlier. They said women have all the advantages in the dating market. If you are an average woman, you can essentially get intimacy whenever you want, while men have to generally struggle. How is this healthy for society, Mr. Girl?
Well, that's a sort of mathematically nonsensical, because every time a woman has sex with a man has sex with a woman. So it's more like
Right,
every
but it's
time
the
a
same
man
man,
has
right?
sex,
That's what they're
I'll
saying.
spend more time talking to different women or talking to that one woman or whatever, and the woman could get away with spending probably 5 minutes looking for sex, but it still comes out to 1-to-1. And then if you think of the time women
No,
spend preening, or the
no, I
time
don't
women
think it comes
spend
out to 1 to 1.
just doing dumb woman stuff that is expected of them, it could average out to much more time. That, like, I can roll out of bed, not shower, and go out and still have a good shot at getting laid, whereas a woman may feel that she has to spend 2 hours getting ready. So I don't quite agree with that formulation.
But it's not 1-to-1 because it's the same guys who are having multiple female partners. Like, this is a whole
Right.
Chad phenomenon. The Chads, the big, strong guys with the chiseled
Only one
physique,
guy's getting it, so
they're
that's
able to
not
have
that's not a good
a
thing.
lot of female partners, but that leaves the majority of men without any partner, without any sexual access. Like, this is a whole Tinder
Okay.
phenomenon also.
Okay,
Like,
okay. So
a woman on
so
Tinder can easily match, but a man on Tinder, it has much less of a chance. He might never match with a female.
Well, okay, so yeah, I guess you're talking about the median, and I'm talking about the mean. Do we have any statistics on how many men are virgins versus women, or how often men are? I guess median
I mean,
statistics.
generally it's like an 80-20 rule. Like 20%
Okay,
of
do you have a
men
source?
are with the
Is
80%.
this-
This is
no
it's like
offense. No offense, but I think you're insane. So I need you to provide some sort of source if you're going to say this, because I think your worldview is absolutely crazy.
But do you agree with it conceptually that this is happening?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know that people. I know that men feel like it's happening. I don't know if it actually is.
So the source of this is all the biological studies on hypergamy. So women
No, no, no,
have this
no.
preference
But
to mate with those
you
who
just
are
messed
higher
up
than
all
them in
that.
social standing and in wealth. So that creates this automatic.
I understand the
dichotomy.
theory. I just
Bro, you
I
don't want this.
I want some
This ain't what
statistics
you want.
to tell
Is
me
it?
what the disparity
All right,
is
bro.
actually like, and is it different in different cultures? I would be much better suited to answer the question.
Yeah, I have to pull it up.
My answer is go to the gym.
You just killed me.
Yeah, I mean, this is what incels are all about. Like, I
Well,
thought
yeah,
you're more
but-
familiar with incel culture.
No, no,
It's
I'm
not
very-
just about
no.
going to the gym.
I also think it's self-inflicted. So I think their feelings are valid, and that there are reasons they feel what they feel, and I understand they hate women and why they hate women, and I kind of hate women too. But I also think that they're a bit overly pessimistic, and that they probably have some personal problems that they're projecting onto, as we all are, onto their kind of political views of the world.
I think that it's a structural problem with sexual liberation that causes this massive increase in men not being able to find partners. I don't think.
I think
it's
that
because
men have
they're not
never-
going to the gym enough.
I think it is because they're not going to the gym. I think men have never, historically, have not had to, because they have all the power. They have the food, they have the money, and they make the laws and they enforce the laws. They haven't really had to make themselves sexy. And now you do. Now it's not good enough to just be a guy and say, I'm a guy, why can't I have sex? You have to market yourself.
But there are guys who just naturally are better looking, right? More attractive, more athletic.
Sure, but there's things you
so
can
they're
do
gonna
to make
get.
yourself,
They're gonna monopolize.
there's things you can do to make yourself more attractive. Eventually,
Plastic
these
surgery.
guys don't want to marry the woman either. So eventually, the ladies will become available, even in your hypergamy nightmare.
Right. You just gotta wait for them to be
Juicy
like,
Middle
in their
Eastern coming in
40s,
from
early
Taylor
50s.
says, Iceland and
And then you
Norway
get to
are
pick
the
up the
safest
cream of the
countries
crop.
on Earth with the most attractive people, despite being sexually liberal.
So I think that within those societies, violence is not the only metric, of societal health. There's also like look at just the tax rate. Actually, I take that back. I'm not going to concede that Iceland and Norway are not violent. They're extremely violent because the tax rate is so high. The government has to force you to give up like 75% of your income and your wealth to provide for this massive socialist state that takes care of all of the children that are not being brought up within healthy families with marriages. So actually, Iceland and Norway, all of the Scandinavian countries, all of the Western European countries, they confirm, my fundamental thesis that you have to have more totalitarianism, more social control, more surveillance, tax people at a higher rate to subsidize the sexual liberation and the breakdown of marriage and traditional family. I think those are great examples for my point.
Juicy. This is these are like some of the more fun questions ever. This one coming in from Extra Delight says sexual liberation from the state, family, and religion. More of a statement in that case. But CJ Canton, thanks for your question. I didn't see it attached. Let me know if they actually here it is.
I have some stats. Whenever
you got it. Going back, we'll give you a chance if you want to talk about that because it's an interesting question. It was one of my favorite questions we've gotten in a while.
Go ahead.
Go ahead for if you do want to talk about the stats you found.
I'm still scrolling to find like a.
You got it.
Exact number. You get asked the questions, please, James.
You bet. CJ Canton says for Daniel, left out is a quote malakat amanicum unquote or sexual slavery, which is allowed by traditional Sharia. Daniel is not correct that he's okay with this slavery and puts no value on freedom. You've got a critic out there, Daniel.
Oh, I'm surprised I have a critic. But yeah, so if you go to my other debates or my channel, I have a lot of information on this practice of concubinage, or if you want to call it sex slavery. You can also read books like War Before Civilization from Lawrence Keeley. And so he explains that in pre-modern times, war was primarily about manpower. Basically, the side that had the biggest army is going to win in wars. And of course, if you lose in a war, you're potentially going to be completely wiped out. So the most valuable thing when manpower is the deciding factor is wombs, basically, is wombs to be able to produce children who will grow up to be warriors and fight in these wars. So literally the existence of your civilization, your society, your people depends on the number of wombs that you have. And that means that the societies that actually took slaves, sex slaves or concubines, those were the societies that survived. Concubinage was essentially a weapon of war, and obviously it's not a good thing. War is not a good thing. Slavery is not a good thing, but in that historical circumstance, it was something that was required. It was morally required. Otherwise, you were going to be wiped out. And this is why all pre-modern civilizations had this practice. I would argue that in Islam, there are a lot of rights given to sex slaves. They couldn't be prostituted. They couldn't be killed or maimed or abused in this physically harmful kind of way. They were given a lot of rights in the sense that their owner could not prostitute them and would have to take care of them, provide for them in terms of food, shelter, clothing, and any children that came out of that relationship would be free, and eventually the mother would be freed as well. So Islam provided a kind of holistic system to integrate these women who are from the Muslim side into Islamic society. So war is inevitable with all societies. This was a practice that we find throughout pre-modern society.
You got it. Thank you very much for your question. Saswade Lord says, hey Daniel, cool beard and turban. Mr. Girl, can you invite Daniel for a regular interview on your channel?
Oh, you're saying like not a debate?
I think that's big.
I don't like to make plans for future streams on stream, but I'm open to DMing with Daniel in the future, discussing.
You got it. And Rugal Migdal says Mr. Girl is a cool guy. Thumbs up. Suswage Lord strikes again. Says, now I don't understand. Hopefully this is an inside joke. Of some dark type of inside joke. They say Mr. Girl has hit a woman, and Daniel is okay with chaining women. Maybe you two can find some common ground.
I didn't know. This is not. It's not really. I mean, it's true. That's why it's funny. But I made a video called "How I Learned to Stop Hitting Women" about my past abusive relationships, and kind of reflecting on a way for people in abusive dynamics to climb out, or at least
Hold on, bro.
providing,
Wasn't that 3?
my train of thought of how I got out of that.
That was a really dark joke. Mango T, thanks for your question, says, Dan, why did Muhammad tell child wife? Let's see. I don't know if this is related to the question or to the topic. I do want to keep it to the topic because that's what the debaters have prepared for. So Mango T, let's see. Rugal
Yeah, I think I did
Migdal
that.
says,
So what's-
hypergamy in all caps, and
What was that?
namely that word that came up before, namely the idea that Daniel
Is
brought
that
up.
2?
You've got hypergamy and then polygamy. I still think that
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
I have the stat here.
fundamentalist religion is the wonderland for men, where they can have as many women as they want, and then liberated sexuality is much harder, and you have to compete.
Here's the stat about hypergamy. So I can share the link at one point, but I'll read the relevant part. As stated previously, the average female likes 12% of men on Tinder. This doesn't mean, though, that most males will get liked back by those 12% of all the women they like on Tinder. This would only be the case if likes were equally distributed. In reality, the bottom 80% of men are fighting over the bottom 22% of women, and the top 78% of women are fighting over the top 20% of men. We can see this trend in figure 1. The area in blue represents the situations where women are more likely to like the men. The area in pink represents the situations where men are more likely to like women. The curve doesn't go down linearly, but instead drops quickly after the top 20% of men. Blah blah blah. So that's
Wait, so the top 20% of the top 20% of men are getting likes from the top 80% of women, and the top 20% of women are getting likes from what?
The top 20% of men are getting likes from the 80%, right? But the bottom 80% of men are competing for basically the bottom 20% of the women. So like if you rank
it's hard out here.
women on Tinder,
You gotta do what you gotta do, right?
From the best, most desirable to the least desirable.
You're basically saying there's 80% of the women can easily get likes, and only 20% of the men can easily get likes.
20% of them, yeah. And the thing is that when you have sexual liberation, that 20% can have sex with as many from the 80% of women that like them as they want, but then there's nothing left for the rest, the 80% of the rest of men.
See? Told you.
I guess I just think
that's what it is.
Inequality.
Group of men came together and they said, "Fucking
by making men
Jimmy's taking all the females,
sexually objectified and making them
and we don't like it."
Presenting and just being like healthier and more attractive. Yeah, go to therapy, go to the gym.
But they're much healthier than the women. Actually, the women are the ones that they can use some exercise as well, I think.
Sure. Women should also go to the gym, and I agree with that. I think that we should push society towards where, if you're a woman, you should have to have a little muscle on you to compete. I agree with that too.
Juicy, to say the least. What is it that community talks about? Chad Thunder Rooster or whatever. April Cox, thanks for your question. Says, Daniel, is gay sex worse than sex with? Let's see. This one, I'll let this. Is this related to the topic?
It is absolutely.
Fair
We need
enough.
to hear
I
it. We
was
need- we
like,
need
all
to
right,
hear it.
I kicked the other one out. So this is it. So Daniel is gay sex worse than sex with a 9-year-old.
Yeah, so we can talk about child marriage. We can talk about homosexuality. This is like combining both of these issues. So definitely, this is a longer discussion that you can find videos on my channel related to them. We can go to the child.
The short
marriage
answer. The
point.
short answer is yes.
Oh yeah, it's obviously yes, but I need to be able to
We
explain.
want to give time, of course.
Yeah, so in low technology societies historically, 99% of human history basically, child labor was essential. Children would work in fields to produce food to survive. People needed child labor to survive, and there was no schooling, and it was over 90% non-literacy, illiteracy. It was only a very small elite that was educated or schooled in any sense. There was no such thing as career for the overwhelming majority. Rather, but for the modern age, a career is not low-skilled food production in agriculture or hunting and gathering, but rather a period of extended schooling to be like a professional or a doctor, lawyer, etc.
Oh,
So
no.
boys and girls were marrying early. There's no need for schooling, and it wasn't ruining their schooling because there was no schooling to get married early. Like the idea of a career was nonsensical. Like there was no such thing for most of human history. So these were illiterate societies, and usually the offense that people have regarding girls marrying or even boys marrying at age 9, 10, 11, 12 is because they're ruining their schooling, or they're being robbed of the opportunity for career, etc. But these haven't existed for the majority of human history. Rather, bearing children, being part of a family, being a loving mother, that was really what was essential. So there was no real reason to delay a female from getting married. And that's why we see this kind of marriage in literally every pre-modern society. It was not seen as a sexual dysfunction or a perversion, and girls can reach puberty by 9 years old. It's called precocious puberty. There's a lot of biological data on this. So there's nothing really that is morally wrong with this practice as it's practiced even today in many different societies. It's not a source of psychological dysfunction or physical dysfunction.
All right, so we're
And
done
a lot
with
of the
two.
Western psychological literature also
I think we're done with
supports
all
this kind
those.
of
We just got
practice.
11 and
I'm
10.
sure, Mr. Grohl, you've talked to different pedophiles, for example, and interviewed them, but you're familiar with the idea of hebephilia. So hebephilia,
I've heard the term.
yeah, so that's not considered a psychological dysfunction because such a large proportion of even Western men that are interviewed or that are given these surveys, and they're kind of hooked up to different sensory devices, show that a large proportion of them are sexually attracted or can be aroused by images of girls in their early teens or even as young as like 10 years old. So within the literature, like you can go read the research paper by Bruce Rind. He says that this is actually an evolutionarily adaptive thing to be attracted to females at this age because it maximizes the fertility window. Women don't have infinite fertility. They are only fertile for a few decades. And in order to maximize that required early marriage. And this is what is found in all societies, according to Bruce Rind, because it's evolutionarily adaptive. So it cannot be a psychological dysfunction. It is just a modern social taboo.
I feel like I should say something.
Say something, bro. Say
agree
what you said.
with the evidence
Say what you
that
just,
you are
bro.
talking about. I don't agree with your conclusion, so I agree that adults can be attracted to pubescent, prepubescent, whatever, children or around that age, and in the right circumstances, more can be aroused by that than they would like to admit. It is a taboo. However, I don't believe that just because it is occurring biologically or naturally or whatever, that means it is moral. I think that the age of consent should be 17. I think that murder could be a biologically selected for trait. That doesn't mean that we're not going to define it as a mental illness.
Bro, shouldn't the consent age be
I
26?
agree that
Because, like, if we're
the
saying that
feelings latent or active,
the
are
brain is,
more common than we
I
would
guess,
like to
what,
admit, and
fully
it's
developed
taboo
or
to even talk
whatever
about it.
at around
But
about that
I think
age,
that the thoughts
and that's what we're
and feelings
concerned
need to be
about, right? Is
separated
consent.
from the action. So I guess this
Then
is one
shouldn't the
area where
age be
I'm
26?
less sexually liberated than you. I think that just because people want it doesn't make it right, and I think it is great. I think the age of consent should be 17.
So are you against, like, what's the minimum age for a child to be sexually active
Where
with
the fuck is
someone
that?
his or her own age? Like 2 8-year-olds, 2 9-year-olds, like what's the
think-
minimum?
I think some amount of experimentation is inevitable.
But
And
what's
some
moral?
amount of-
What's morally acceptable?
I think some amount of privacy provided to children when they're playing or hanging out for brief periods is also desirable. But I do think that not too much privacy. I think kids should generally be checked on, and if they're having sex, they should probably be stopped, not shamed, but just say, hey,
How
Bro,
young?
talk
though?
about
oh
this
yeah,
lot.
because it's north of
I
here.
don't
Duh,
even think
okay.
it is ethical.
9, 8?
Well, let me hear me out. I don't think it's ethical for a parent or guardian to knowingly provide a space for children to have sex in, or minors to have sex in, below the age of probably
more.
15. I think if you think the kids are making out, I would say 13. If you think that they actually have the space and time and means to actually have sex, and you're letting them do this at age 13, I think that's unethical and that it should be stopped. I don't think exactly it should be criminalized, but maybe it should.
These are just based on your feelings, but what are the feelings based on? Like, you're not giving like a morally based
I
argument.
think it's based on my experience, probably. When I was
So my argument was based on like biological data, psychological data, and the actual historical practices. So I'm trying to understand, like, you have certain
well,
taboos.
to a feminist, history is not a argument. For most of history is horrifying, and even to you, most of human history is like 300,000 years of nasty, brutish, and short. So I don't, that the appeal to historical practices doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah, but so then what does resonate with you? Like,
I
what
don't know,
about
I've always
access
thought
to
this.
pornography? Like, they're teaching now, like, proponents of sexual liberation are advocating teaching kindergartners how to masturbate and how to consume pornography responsibly. Do you agree with that? Like, should kindergartners...
I would need to see a source for people talking about advocating for kindergartners to consume porn responsibly. I did see your article about that tweet, but that woman deleted that tweet probably half an hour after she made it. So I'm not going to count that as a deleted tweet by somebody who got dogpiled by absolutely everybody. I'm not going to count that as a common sentiment in liberal society. I will say that my girlfriend asked me to have sex when I was 13. We were naked, and I literally had a condom in my nightstand, and I said, no, we're too young. So somewhere along the way, either through experience or through what I was taught, I have always felt like it's not something that a 13-year-old can really reasonably psychologically handle.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Mark says, Mr. Girl, what was the whole thing about finally being able to marry a cutie?
Oh, I don't know if you're familiar, but my rise to whatever prominence I have now was fueled by my controversial review of the movie Cuties, in which I self-deprecatingly acknowledged that I found the cuties attractive, despite thinking that it is unethical to make a movie about 11-year-old girls twerking. I said some controversial things about adults being able to be attracted to minors in certain situations. I was making a joke saying that under Sharia law, I could finally live out my fantasy of marrying the blonde one from Cuties, but I don't actually want to do that. That was a joke.
Watch yourself, man.
Just remember, the only reason I'm not laughing is not because I am bummed at your misfortune. I don't take any joy in it. But I'm also wondering, I'm like, ooh, did I accidentally break the Twitch TOS tonight? Am I accidentally helping you evade any sort of recent ban?
Yes.
Okay. Oh well. Well, that's all right. We always like playing it close to the heart. So Mango.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you're streaming on Twitch. We're all moving from Twitch to YouTube though.
Who's we're all?
Everybody. Twitch is gonna get rid of all politics eventually.
Wait, you're streaming to Twitch right now?
No.
He's
I'm
not.
banned from Twitch.
But I'm accidentally.
But he's streaming. He's streaming on Twitch. Yeah.
It's not a huge crowd watch. But
yeah, I mean, I think with Destiny, I think everybody's gonna have to eventually switch over to YouTube.
it's time. I hate to say it, especially because some people are watching on Twitch right now. We love that you're watching on Twitch right now. The 11 of you who are, but I think YouTube is the future. Now, Max, you think that? Do I understand? So you're saying that
Moments like
this
this.
looks like?
I'm glad you considered.
You should probably delete your bot though after this. But sorry, what were you gonna say? Yeah, I think YouTube is much more hospitable to I'll be able to monetize. The video I got banned for on Twitch, YouTube let me monetize. So they're much more accepting of controversial discussion or adult discussion. Right. But yeah, my chat is freaking out, telling you to stop your stream and delete your VOD.
We like to live dangerously over here, but I have to ask. I appreciate your chat doing that though. That I do. We'll definitely erase the VOD. And you say that everybody's moving over. So I'm curious. If you forgive me for jumping in, you guys. I can't help but be curious because I'm always looking at Twitch and YouTube, and I'm wondering where should we really try to grow. And you're saying that it looks like Twitch is actually trying to phase out any sort of controversial political stuff.
I mean, it's starting to feel like it, right? I mean, Bosch and Destiny and yeah. I mean, and then the way it operates, where if you talk to somebody who's banned, even if your stream doesn't violate TOS. The way it's set up so that there's going to be a new ecosystem that forms around these huge streamers on YouTube, and for newer streamers wanting to get into politics, streaming politics, they're probably just going to start on YouTube. I would assume. It feels to me like Twitch just wants people to play Minecraft and Roblox and Fortnite.
For some reason, yeah, okay. So we'll jump into the next question. But Daniel, what are your thoughts? Do you have thoughts on Twitch? Have you just never gotten on? No interest?
I'll be banned within 5 seconds.
Sure will. Actually, the light thanks for your question says, what do you both think about sex workers in the world being unionized?
Go ahead, Mr.
I think sex work. I think it's going to happen either way. So whether you think it's damaging to the worker or not, I think it should be legalized and done in the most ethical possible way. So I think a union, if that helps them, then yeah, I'm all for it.
I'm against any kind of sex work, and I think that Islam provides for men who might have a preference for multiple women. There is polygyny. A man can marry multiple women. I think marriage is really a safe, functional institution that should be preserved, and it leads to the flourishing of society. And I think things like sex work really are damaging and destroy society. I think it's bad for the actual sex worker. Put the question about soul and afterlife aside for the purpose of discussion, but it's going to psychologically harm her in the long run, as has been attested to by many former sex workers. It's also going to create a society where people are having are going to masturbate and become addicted to pornography, and the technology is getting worse and worse, where it's just destroying societies. Like Japanese society has been destroyed basically by pornography and sex work. Like such a huge percentage of Japanese women are involved in sex work. It's like I think 1 out of every 200 Japanese women have been involved in pornography, and the Japanese men are not interested in marriage, and even if they are getting married, they aren't reproducing. So the Japanese government is freaking out right now because the population is not going to be able to replace itself. So this is like a byproduct of sex work. It leads to and pornography. It leads to the destruction of entire countries and civilizations.
You got it. Thanks for your question. This one I'm going to try to read through. We got a couple more new ones that are coming. Mango T says, regarding sexual liberation, is it sexual liberation to ask a child wife to scrape semen from garments?
So I mean, this is.
I don't think that's a good faith question. I don't think you should answer that, Daniel.
Yeah, I already answered like the child marriage question, so we
Yeah,
can get into
I
the homosexuality one if anyone's interested. But
I wouldn't engage with the bad faith question like that.
You got it. And CJ Canton, this one looks like it's just not quite on topic. I do want to say, we want to remind you folks, our guests are linked in the description. You can listen to more of Mr. Girl as well as Daniel right now, and that includes if you're listening via the podcast. If you're listening via Twitch, we are going to move over to YouTube. I put the link for the YouTube live stream in the Twitch chat. Highly encourage you to click on that as we're going to move off of Twitch. But I want to say, folks, thanks so much for being with us. Thanks for your questions. Thanks to Daniel as well as to Mr. Girl. It's been a true pleasure to have you guys here.
thank you
Thanks
so
for
much,
having me.
James. Thank you so much, Max. You're really
Okay.
very kind.
I think we
You're
got
really,
enough. So
in
let's
this very
go.
good faith. And I, appreciated
Because we're gonna
you
need
responding to the kind of points
an
that I was
opening right there.
Thank you. I
Opening
appreciate
right
you
there.
too. I appreciate the conversation.
And then we need to
appreciate the good faith
finish
and
this
kindness as well. So it's just thank you both.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. With that, I'll be back in just a moment, folks, with updates on upcoming debates, as well as updates about Twitch. And thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Guests linked in the description. Check them out. We'll be right back in just a moment.
That one was kind of crazy. No way. No. We do a Muslim versus a religious change the title. To cool, cool, cool.
Neutral, nonpartisan platform, including tonight's debate on evidence for God, with our debaters, Godless Girl and the Muslim apologist. And if you enjoy what either of them have to say tonight, our guest links are in the description below. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Godless for their up to 10-minute opening statement. Godless, the floor is all yours.
Oh, I probably won't need 10 minutes, but I've been asked to go first, even though he's the affirmative. I have no problem giving that handicap, though. Well, first of all, he after tearing down my arguments,
I'm
he would
gonna
have
hand
to
it over.
put up his own. Like, really, the default position when it comes to the existence of God is to not believe in God until you have sufficient evidence, which I don't think he's going to come close to providing that. And when it comes specifically to his God, there's going to be problems with the properties such as omnipotence. There's the omnipotence paradox. God can't create a stone he's all powerful, but he can't create a stone that's so heavy that he can't lift it, because that would be a contradiction. Um, but I could do that, right? It's logically possible to do that. I could do that, but his God can't do that, yet his God is omnipotent. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like gibberish. Then there's going to be problems with the omnipotence and omniscience, like the problem of evil. If God is omniscient, then he desires to stop the evil in the world. And if he is omnipotent, then he can stop the evil in the world. But yet we see evil in the world, so therefore, that God doesn't exist. Um, there's the problem with and when it comes to any God, if you define it as a disembodied mind that created the universe, it's if you take time to begin at the Big Bang, then you can't have a God creating the Big Bang, because that would be having a time before time, which is just gibberish. That's like existing before time. Before is
All
temporal.
right, hold on, guys. I'll be right back.
Another thing is, imagine a world where no gods exist, but people like Muslim apologists just desperately want to believe that they do for various reasons, such as they're afraid of death, whatever. A world in which we know people invent myths, have imaginary friends, lie to each other and lie to themselves. We know from psychology that people tend to believe what they want to believe and what they expect to be true. And now tell me, why the fuck do you think we're not in that world? Like, what observation are you making in this world that makes you think we're not in that world? Because that's the world that this world appears exactly to be that world to me. Open mic.
Woo-hoo. Thank you so very much, Godless. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Muslim apologist, for your up to 10-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, thank you, Godless, for that opening. So I begin with a short dua. Islamic greetings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings be upon you. Rabbi shrahli sadri wa yassirli amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. So that is a short prayer from the dua, the dua of Musa alayhi salam, Moses in the Quran. Okay, when he faced Fir'aun or the Pharaoh. So basically, today we're going to talk about my position on why I believe, in the existence of God. So for the purpose of this introduction, I won't be, touching on the points that Godless has
All right.
presented. We will just leave that for the open discussion. All right. So basically, we need to begin. How does Islam define God? So this is actually encapsulated in a very short surah, Surah Al-Ikhlas. Um, Basically, the verse goes, Kul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid walam yulad, walam yakullahu kufuwan ahad. So to translate that, it means God is one, God the eternal, absolute. He neither begets, nor is he begotten, and there is none like unto him. So based on the principle that this verse, this surah has given us, we can definitely define God as God is not deism. It's not understood as how deists would understood God, an impersonal being which has no conscious, which has no intelligence. God is definitely not a trion. Okay, God does not divide itself into three parts. God is not a schizophrenic. God is not polytheism. God does not, God. There's no multiple gods. There's only one God. Okay, that is how Islam defines God. Okay, so now that we have understood how Islam defines God, let us go. Let us now go to my reasons as to why I believe there is a God. So first of all, there is this principle called, or this innate uh, understanding of in the human being called religio naturalis. Okay, the natural inclination of man to worship the one supreme being. Okay, this is evident in the human psyche. You can't actually deny this unless you want to suppress it. Yes, but you can't deny that this inclination to worship something which is bigger than you, which is higher, that is supreme than you, exists in you as a human being. So scientists would call this the God gene, right? So that's my first point. The second point would be, if you look at the world, the creation, you always realize there's always a cause and effect. Okay, something can never exist from nothing. Okay, something cannot exist in a vacuum and just simply pop up out of thin air, right? So there's always something that will be caused by something else, right? So you can't just simply say that this tin, for example, magically appears out of nowhere without a creator. So this is why I believe that this world, this beautiful world that we live in, this air that we breathe and so on, must have a cause, must have a supreme cause to this existence, right? And then we have the next point, which is design, okay, related to the earlier point. So, this tin, this beautiful tin, with all these designs and these colors and this logo, has someone designing it. I mean, it's not going to just appear out of thin air, right? So likewise, if you look at creation, you see the trees, you see the sky, you see the earth, you see the sun, the planets, the orbit of planets, the laws of gravity, etc. This can't just simply exist out of nothing without an intelligent supreme being determining and controlling everything. Okay, so this is why I believe that there has to be a supreme being which basically designed the whole universe. And then we also go into morality and ethics. Okay, so how do we define what is murder, what is rape, what is arson? Okay, I mean, as human beings, we are always subject to emotion and we are incapable of being objective. So who is the supreme arbitrator to define what is moral, what is not? Okay, at what point did moral objectiveness values arise? So this is something which non-theists should answer, because atheism for me doesn't resolve this question. Okay. So my last point, okay, just because I'm just summarizing it to 5 points. So this is the fifth and last point. Human reasoning. Okay. So without God, okay, there will be no explanation for human reason, for human free will. Okay. So where does the human reason arise? Okay. The fact that we are here shows that, you know, we don't just simply, appear out of nowhere, right? So reasoning has to be, has to come from a single source. I mean, you don't just if you look at creatures, for example, they don't come with reason. Okay, but only humans have reason. Why is that? Okay, so the absence of God does not explain this. So in conclusion, the burden is of proof to determine whether God exists or not. Where to deny God's existence is actually upon the atheists or the non-theists, because they need to show strong evidence apart from appealing to emotionalism that God does not exist. And with
Man,
that, I
this
end
still
my
ain't enough
intro.
metal,
Thank you
bruh.
very much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
It's
Thank you
insane.
so very much, the Muslim apologist. And with that, we are going to move into about 50 minutes of open dialogue. I'm handing the panel and the floor right back over to you guys.
Okay, I didn't understand the very first thing you said. But so the last thing you said was about the ability to reason, like where did it come from? Like I could get into the like how it evolved and everything, but that's actually irrelevant because you're just giving the argument from ignorance, which is we don't know, therefore
So we
God.
still gotta close
So
all this
it's a fallacy. What you're
and
doing is just a
and
logical
then
fallacy.
still make
Like let's
gates.
assume for the sake of argument that we can't explain how reasoning came about. That isn't a reason to believe in God. I don't know if you want to respond to that because I have more to throw after.
Yeah, thank you, Godless. Well, basically, what to me, the evidence for God is a puzzle. It's a big puzzle. You can't just simply isolate one
Is
point.
what? It's
Like
what?
it's a huge puzzle. So basically, what I mean is, you know, the points that I give is just pieces of the puzzle which you need to fit in together.
No, but how is that a piece?
Yeah.
How is that one piece evidence when it's fallacious reasoning?
Yes. Well, you need to actually look at the whole picture. It's not just about human reasoning alone.
Yeah,
You
we
need to
still
look
should
at
have left.
morality and
No, well,
ethics.
let's
You need to
At
just
look
least
look
to
at
at
finish
that
the
for
wall
now.
for
We can
sure.
look at the
yes.
other puzzle pieces later. Let's just look at this.
Well, for
Do you
me, you can.
understand that
Yeah.
it's a lot?
Yes.
It's a fallacy. What you're saying is a fallacy.
Well, it's
You've
only a
you've
fallacy if you
committed an error in
look at it
reasoning, sir. It's called the
for
appeal to
for,
ignorance.
for me to look at this at in a vacuum in isolation. Okay, it's not does not just justify, does not do justice to the point that I raised. Okay, you can't just simply
Okay,
say, oh,
you're
this
pretty
is a
much just
fallacy, that is
abandoning
a
that point
fallacy.
then.
I'm not abandoning the point. I'm just saying that you need to look at all this as pieces of the puzzle which fits together
Okay,
and
whatever.
points to
Yeah,
the one true God. You see? Yes.
so he doesn't really have a
Yeah.
response to me pointing out it's a fallacy, I guess. He just says we need the other pieces of the puzzle, which isn't a fucking argument. So now let's go to what he fucking said about ethics. Like, oh, well, where would we get ethics from if it wasn't for God, like the punishment and all that. Well, first of all, I'm a moral non-cognitivist, so I don't think that any moral proposition is true or false. But you've just committed another fucking fallacy, sir, which is the appeal to consequences. So let's assume that if we don't have a God, that there's no way to be moral or have moral laws or whatever. That doesn't mean that a fucking God exists. Are you stupid? That's another fallacy. Do you want
Are
to
you
respond to that before I
stupid?
go to the other things you said?
Well,
What if
then you
our
will need
boy
to
is
propose
stupid?
something which which is just, which is moral.
No, I
How do you
don't.
define what is moral? How do you define what is
No, I
moral
don't.
and,
What's the argument
ethical?
that I need to do
Yes.
that or God exists? If I don't do that, then God
So,
exists? What the fuck?
well, from what I understand from the atheistic point of view, if you say that there's no such thing as
That's
morality, I
funny.
mean, you don't have to
That's
define what
funny.
is moral and ethics, then I can define myself what is moral and ethical. So if I were to go out and murder someone, would that be moral to
All
you?
right, guys. While we're
How would
Let's
you
waiting
know
assume
that
that's
that's
true.
moral?
I'm
Yeah,
I
how
just
would
for
you
said
know
this
I'm a
that's
moral
metal to
moral?
do its
non-cognitivist.
thing,
So I don't
let's
believe
pull
moral
this up.
propositions are true or false. It's
Yeah,
just
you may not
people's
believe that.
preferences, and
Yes.
preferences
Sorry,
are
sorry.
not
Yes, you may not
preferences
believe
are
that,
not
but what
true or
about other
false,
people?
sir. So you
Yeah,
can go out and
what about
murder
other
people
people?
if you want. That it doesn't mean that God exists.
Yeah, but that is that moral or not? That's the question. I mean, you of
I
course you
don't
can
believe
do that.
moral propositions are
Yeah.
true or false, sir.
Well, again, you need to show evidence that what is moral and what is not moral. I mean,
No,
how
I
do you
don't.
define morality?
Why
Yeah,
do I
you
need to
I
do
mean,
that?
yeah,
Why is that? What does that have to do with whether
because
or
that
not
is
God exists?
how we as human beings live in a society. That is how we interact with other people. That is how we as human beings live our life. So if there's no morality, there's no ethics, there's no need for morality, then how are you going to lead your life? How
Well,
will you
people just
interact with other
act on their
people?
preferences. People have ethical
So
preferences.
if
That
my
doesn't mean that God
preferences is
exists.
if my personal preference is to go out and kill people, you would accept that. You
What
will
what can
seriously
I say?
accept
No,
that.
oh no, we need to say that God exists to stop you. Like, what do you want me to say? Yeah, you can go out and kill people if you want. What the fuck
Wow,
does that have to do with God?
that actually speaks volumes because if I were to go and buy a gun, walk into somewhere in the
Sir,
There's
US, and I go and I
consequences.
committing an
shoot everyone,
You could
that
do
is
it.
moral, that is okay for you because that is absolutely
look,
ethical.
maybe you didn't understand the fucking fallacy. It's called the appeal to consequences. So what you're saying is if we don't believe in God, then we can just go out and murder people. That's not a
Exactly.
fucking
That's why
argument.
that
That's an
that's what
error
I
in reasoning, sir.
that is what exactly I'm saying, because
Yeah,
without
I know exactly.
something
That's
to
a
define.
fucking
Oh, she
logical
dabbing.
fallacy.
um
You
then you need to
flunked,
tell me
sir.
how
This is
do
the
you
second
then
thing. This is the second fallacy I pointed out. You flunked.
I
You
for me
failed.
it's not- it's
Now,
for me it's not a fallacy. You
you
keep
want to move on to the
interrupting
next
me, so
point
I
about the
can
fucking
I mean
trees? That was what the
you
next
keep
thing was. The
interrupting
fucking
me
trees
and
exist.
I can't explain the point properly. Okay, please excuse me. Yeah, I mean, like I said, everything that I've laid out is pieces of the puzzle. Yes, you can pick each one and dissect and every one, but in the end you need to look at the whole picture. It's not just about
Yeah, let's put together
morality
a
and
whole
reasoning.
puzzle full of logical
Yeah,
fallacies and get God. What the fuck is the matter with you?
you need to go through and tell me which is the fallacy, because I don't see the fallacy here. I'm sorry, you don't
I
convince me at
told
all.
you. Look, Google it. It's called the appeal to consequences, and the first one was the appeal to
Yes, you can
ignorance.
throw. Yes, you can throw all kinds of terms. Appeal to appeal to logic, appeal to this, appeal to emotionalism, appeal to whatever. But it doesn't mean anything because you don't fit in the whole puzzle. You see, I mean,
I don't know.
let's
I'm
go
not
through.
following what you're saying. It
You
doesn't mean
need to go through the whole
fallacies don't
thing,
mean
and only then you can
fallacies
tell
don't
me which
count.
where is the fallacy.
Fallacies are not problematic if you're putting
You're
them
just
into a puzzle.
what you are doing is just to pick at one particular point, and then you try to slam a
Yeah, we're gonna address
particular appeal to
fucking
fallacy.
each point one at a time.
Okay, never mind. It's okay. Go ahead. It's up to you. I mean, we can go through
Yeah,
each
we're
and
gonna
every one.
address each one
Yeah,
at a time. What do you want
of
me to
course.
address them all at once? Because there's something also called the machine gun fallacy, sir, which would be if you wanted me to address all your points at the same time.
I've
Like,
never heard of
it's
that.
an embarrassment. Aren't you embarrassed? You come on this fucking show and you don't even know what a goddamn motherfucking logical fallacy is? What the fuck is the matter with you? This is a debate show.
I don't rely on these kind of philosophical arguments or pointing
Oh
out
my god.
You
logical
don't
fallacies.
rely on logic and reason.
I don't rely on pointing out logical fallacies to others, because I believe that sometimes you need to appeal to your heart. You need to appeal not just to logic, pure uncalculative logic alone. You need to have some heart into it. Okay, so it's not just about logic alone when it comes to evidence for the existence of God. You see, yeah. So you need to look at the bigger picture, as I said.
Okay, like the trees, that thing, you want to look at the fucking trees? So you're saying that these
Sure,
things
why not?
appear designed. What?
They
What?
don't. They don't.
Okay. Well, sir, you're saying that all these things in the world appear designed. How the fuck do you know if everything in the world appears designed? Then what are you fucking comparing it against that would be non-designed? If you don't
Is this
know, if you don't have
design?
an example, sir,
Did
if you
this
don't
pop
have a
out of thin
fucking
air?
example of something that is not designed, then how do you know what fucking something that's designed looks like? Answer the
Is this
question.
design?
Answer the yeah.
Is this
Answer the
design?
question.
Is this design? Yes or no?
Yeah, and you know what I'm comparing that? You know what I'm comparing that against to determine that it's designed? A fucking tree, because a tree is not designed. Now, what are you comparing the trees
I
against to
think
say
a
that they are
tree is much
designed?
more
What?
complicated
Give me
and
an example of something that's undesigned.
much more complex and much more complicated than this. Right? Yeah,
The
and I
trees
don't
are more
think a
complex
tree.
than a computer mouse.
Yes, it is. It is much complex and much more complicated. I don't think you can create a tree. I challenge you to create a tree. If you can do that, then yeah, I will concede
Yeah,
the point.
mines don't create trees, sir, like you
then I
believe.
think um, then I think you haven't you I mean you haven't gotten my point. So yeah,
What's the point?
it's up
Well, I asked you a question that you didn't answer. What are you to
no,
determine that
because
they're designed? What are you
well,
comparing them against?
the answer is when you said yes when I asked you, is this design? You said yes. So if this
Yeah, because
mouse,
I have examples of mines creating
this
computer
simple,
mice.
sorry, please don't interrupt me, please. So this mouse, this simple mouse, okay, has a creator. What makes you think a tree, which with all its complexities, with all its organism, with all the veins that of the tree, the leaves, the they because we know that trees uh, produces carbon, carbon oxygen, and also breathes in oxygen, takes in oxygen, etc. What makes you think a tree, which is much more complex than this, does not have a creator?
Because I don't see any evidence to believe it, and I don't. If I did believe that everything in the world, this is the point you haven't responded to.
Then I
If
can
I
use
did
the same.
believe,
I would probably use. Then if that's the case, then I can just deny it as well. I can just say, okay, this does not have a creator. I don't believe that this has a
but
creator.
I can
That,
show
that's
you
basically
evidence of
that's
computer
that's
mice
basically
being
what you're
created by minds, sir.
that's basically what you're saying. So I mean, that's not an argument. To me, that's a fallacy.
Sir,
That's a
I
fallacy
can
of
pull up a
denial.
fucking YouTube video of like a computer factory, and you can watch fucking people with minds creating computer mice. You can't do that with
You
God's
I
mind
think
creating the universe.
if
But
you
you still
ask me, I
haven't
think
addressed the point.
you have
Sir,
already
don't interrupt
considered
me.
the point
I
when you
stopped
said
talking when you said don't interrupt you.
yes
You're
to my
being rude. You're
question.
being rude.
When you
I
said
didn't
yes
interrupt. I
to my
stopped it from
question,
interrupting you, so stop interrupting
whether
me.
this
Sir,
okay, sure,
calm down.
go ahead, go ahead. Okay,
You
sure,
didn't answer
sure.
the fucking question. How are you determining that it's designed? If you think everything in the world is designed, then you have nothing that's undesigned to compare it to determine that it's designed.
Because this is human logic. I mean, something cannot be created out of nothing. You can't say that this tin was created out of nowhere. Someone must have done something to it, right? Someone must have
Look,
processed it.
those
So the
look,
trees
those
just
aren't the
appeared
two
out of nowhere,
fucking
out
those
of
aren't the only
existence.
two options. We could have a past
That's
eternal
basically what
universe.
that's what you
We could live in
basically
an
that's what you're telling
oscillating
me.
universe, right? Something that's not a god could have caused the universe. There's all these different options. It's not that something can't, like, it's not either God or something came from nothing. There's all these different options. But by the way, now I'm going to ask this guy a question. He's claiming that something can't come from nothing, and I want everybody to watch him dodge this question. He won't be able to not be able to answer it. If nothing exists, right? Nothing is the absence of everything. Then what the fuck is the thing that's preventing something from popping into existence, sir? Now watch him dodge. Watch him not answer.
Sorry, I don't really get it. I mean, you're saying
Okay,
what
a
is
child
preventing
can
something
understand.
from happening
If
into anything?
nothing exists, nothing is the absence
Okay.
of everything. You're saying something can't pop into existence because there's something that's preventing it from popping into existence? What is the thing that's preventing it if nothing exists? If nothing
Well, that
exists, then nothing is
yeah.
preventing the something from popping into existence, right?
There has to be something that's preventing it. I mean, if I throw this to the
I don't
ground
get the question.
Exactly.
someone
Exactly. There has to be something
someone
that's
is
preventing it.
preventing me
But
from throwing it to the
there's not
ground,
something that's preventing it if nothing exists.
if something prevents me from throwing this to the ground, then someone must have been preventing me something. So it's the same thing. It's the same logic here. I mean, you can simply assume that just because there's nothing is preventing me from stopping it, there's there's not no existence for there's no force stopping me from doing it. I mean, where's the logic in that? I don't get the logic.
I don't understand how you cannot understand. If
I
nothing
don't understand.
exists, then there is not something that's preventing something from popping into existence, right?
Why would something have to
It
pop
goes back to
into
my earlier
existence
point. I
just
mean,
because nothing exists?
I mean,
I don't get
oh,
It's a
it.
okay.
yes or no question. Do you
I don't
It's
know
understand?
how
way too
to
big brain for me.
break this down any further because there has to be like I said, there's always a cause and effect. Okay, the effect doesn't come before the cause. This is basic logic. You can't say that if the effect comes before the cause. Okay, this is basic human understanding of logic. Okay, so there's always B first. Sorry, B after A. A cannot come after B. So what you're proposing is that B comes before A. I mean, doesn't make any sense to me. I'm
I don't
sorry.
know what you're talking about. What am I proposing
Yeah,
comes before what?
We're all confused.
yeah. I
we're,
mean, I
we're
don't
all
know.
confused.
You want to go to the next point? I mean, I think I think I've said my
No,
piece,
I want you to
right?
explain what you just said.
So basically, what I'm saying is that nothing, okay, nothing, nothing can exist, okay, without something happening, right? Do you get my point?
No,
Do
you're
you get
just
what I'm
restating the
saying?
claim.
Yeah, I am stating the claim. That is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
you're restating the
So
claim without answering my question about the claim or explaining it.
well, basically, I'm saying that this is human reasoning. I mean, you can't if you can't accept it. I mean, there's nothing I can say or
What is
do that will
human
convince
reasoning?
you. Okay, human
Sir,
reasoning is
look,
a
you
faculty
didn't,
for us to think and understand and to to will everything. Yeah,
sir,
what makes us human? That's the question.
do you agree or disagree with, you're trying to do a red herring. Do you agree or disagree with this? If nothing exists, then nothing is preventing something from popping into existence. Do you agree with that?
I disagree with it because how can
Oh,
nothing
so
prevent
what is
something
the
from
thing that's
existing?
preventing it? What is the thing that's preventing it?
It depends on the situation. I mean, you can't just
It can't be
simply
like the laws of cause and effect, right? Because nothing exists. The laws of cause and effect don't exist. So it can't be that.
what you're proposing is that something might have caused some nothing to exist. I mean, it still goes back to something. It goes back to something. that will prevent it to
Mm.
become
I'm
nothing.
not claiming that
So
something came
so
No,
from
it's,
hold
it's
on, hold
nothing.
to
on.
me
I
to
think I
That
me
is
get it. I think I
not
get
a
it.
that
logical
So I
that
think what
impossibility.
she's saying is if nothing exists, then nothing is stopping nothing from existing. So she's saying, but okay. So my question, so why would that, like, okay, fine, nothing exists, so nothing is stopping anything from existing. I guess then what's your point? Like, what does that have to do with anything? So things can exist, right? So nothing's stopping things from existing. So things can exist. But I don't get. So what's your argument? I don't get the argument. I think that's where I'm at right now.
Ability.
that is illogical. What you're proposing is illogical because it doesn't make any
It's
sense
not.
to
What's
me.
the contradiction?
Uh-huh.
I'm
The
not, and but I'm
contradiction
not
is,
proposing it. I'm just saying that it's a possibility. It's a logical possibility.
how can
It might be
something prevent some?
counterintuitive.
How can
Something
something
coming from
prevent
nothing
nothing?
might be counterintuitive, but that's not an
No, it
argument,
can't be.
right?
That's my point. It can't be counterintuitive.
I
Okay,
don't
it
know why
can't
you
be.
don't
It
think
can't
maybe
be.
the
Yeah,
laws of cause
yeah.
and effect just came into existence at the Big Bang and didn't exist prior to it.
Well, you want to talk about the Big Bang, then
Okay.
that's a different discussion actually that we can talk about. Yeah, that's something totally different.
No, it's not. We're talking about something coming
Yeah.
from nothing.
Mm. Yeah, if you
But
want to talk about
I
Big Bang,
also
yes.
already pointed out that we could also live in an oscillating universe, right? It doesn't mean that a God created. Just let's assume. Okay, let's assume something can't come from nothing, even though I fucking humiliated and destroyed you on that point. Let's assume that it can't for the sake of argument. Okay, how do you
Finish
know the
you.
universe isn't past eternal, or that we live in a fucking oscillating universe because our universe is like constantly expanding and then it's going to collapse in on itself, and that could result in another Big Bang? And there's been a past infinite number of Big Bangs and times the universe expand and then collapse in on itself, right? Or something that's not a
Mm.
god, not a mind, could have caused the universe, or we could live in a multiverse. All these other things are possibility. You're just making a
Yes,
false
of course.
dichotomy when you say
Yes,
either
you are.
it's something
You.
came from no. Sir, I
I'm not
wasn't
saying that it's
finished.
not.
I wasn't
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
finished.
Go ahead. Go
You're
ahead.
just making
Sorry.
a
Sorry.
false dichotomy. There's
Sorry.
tons of options. So you're just making a false dichotomy when you say that it's either something came from nothing or a God created the universe. Those are not the only two options.
Well, you're going to have to show me what exactly are the options are there apart from this, because yeah, you can say that we live in a multiverse. We can say that the world is infinite. We are going to go through, we are going through multiple big bangs. I know that scientists have proposed this, but you're going to have to show evidence than just simply proposing theories. You're just throwing theories, but you're not showing any evidence. See,
No, I
there's
don't.
no
I'm
there's
not
no conclusive.
proposing any one particular theory.
These
I'm
are all
just saying that
theories
these are
which, sorry,
possibilities.
please don't interrupt me, please. Sorry, please excuse me, please don't interrupt me. So basically what you're doing, you're just throwing theories which scientists have been throwing out for decades, but there's no conclusive evidence to this. So I mean, of course, there are many possible. You can say that the Earth is probably on the back of an elephant, and the elephant is walking on water for all I care. But that doesn't prove your position. That doesn't prove that what you are saying is true. You're going to have to show more evidence than this. You see. So yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you fucking idiot. I don't have a position. I don't know where the universe came from. I don't need to show you how the universe came about. That's not like, what are you saying? Are you doing the appeal to ignorance again? Where, well, without God, we don't know, therefore God must exist? I
So
don't
you're
know
not
where the fucking universe came from. I don't know if it's
basically.
always existed. Excuse me, I'm not finished. I was
Okay,
saying
sorry.
all these other possibilities because against your claim that there's only two options. Either God created the universe or something came from nothing. And I was showing that no, that's stupid, right? That's not the only two options. And I listed all these other possibilities. I don't take a position on any of them. I don't fucking know. And that's fine for me to not know. That doesn't mean that God exists.
So basically, you're saying you don't know, you don't care about the existence of the universe, you're not curious about it, you don't want to know your place in the universe. So that's how low you think humans are. You think humans are just here to exist, to live and breathe, and to die. Before that, you procreate and then you die, and then the cycle just leaves again, just goes on again. I mean, for me, that is a very
It could
small
be. That could
form
be
of
true.
existence. See, so what value do you put to your existence? I mean, what is your purpose of life? I mean, don't you have the curiosity to know what's your purpose of life at the very least?
Yeah, so me saying that there's all these different possibilities and I don't know which one is the case doesn't mean that I'm not, it doesn't follow that then I'm not curious, right? But, and then what's the stuff about what is the value of life? Are you doing the appeal to consequence thing? Like life is pointless without God? Are you doing that again? Life is pointless without God, therefore God exists? That's not an argument. That's an error in reasoning.
How is that erroneous?
Sir, do
if
you understand
you
that
know,
just because something
yeah.
has consequences doesn't mean it's false?
Well,
Do you
okay, I'm going to
understand
try to
that? It
steer.
doesn't
I'm going to
follow
try
that
to
it's
steer.
false because it has
Sorry,
consequences. Let's assume
I'm
on
going.
atheism, life is
Mhm,
pointless and you
yeah.
can't have values or whatever the fuck you claimed. That doesn't mean that God exists. That's not an argument. It's an error in reasoning.
Like I said, you need to show evidence. You need to propose an alternative theory to God's existence. You see, you deny this. You don't. You say that it doesn't matter to you. It doesn't. You don't. Basically, you don't care about the existence of the universe.
I didn't say that.
For me, that's basically what you're implying, even if you don't say this
No, I didn't
clearly,
say that.
right?
I
So
don't know. To
yeah, to
me, I
me, I
mean, it's
mean, I mean,
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that God doesn't exist, right? But whenever you try to throw it, like get visceral with it, to try to just to knock somebody down, I guess, then it's like, well, you're doing the same thing you're accusing them of doing. So now you're just as bad as it. Just let him live, bro. If he wants to believe it, if you don't want to believe it, just let it live.
your reasoning
But this is a debate. I get it. No, I get it. I know why this is. Yeah,
is just that you're just
I'm just saying.
pointing out logical fallacies here and there. Logical, this is wrong, that is wrong, but you're not listening. You're not understanding. You're not feeling. So for me,
What am I not understanding?
all this comes together as a part. Like I said, it's part of a huge jigsaw puzzle. Which, when you fit in together, then you will know and realize that the world does not exist in a vacuum. Okay. I mean,
I
yes,
don't
you can say
look,
this
I
is
don't get
this
the
is a
puzzle
logical
thing. You keep
fallacy.
saying
That
that
is a
okay, we
logical
gotta
fallacy.
address this fucking puzzle thing because I don't understand it, right? You're saying that if you put a bunch of like errors and reasoning together in a puzzle, that you get God?
See, you're doing it again. You're pointing. This is a logical fallacy. That is a logical fallacy. This is wrong. That is wrong. But you're not listening. You're not understanding. You're not appealing. You're
What
not
am I not
got. You're
understanding?
not gonna. You're not conscious. You're not conscious of your fitra, religio naturalis. Okay, you're suppressing your innate nature to
What is the
recognize
fitra?
that fitra is basically what you call religio naturalis in Latin, right? So it means
It's
appeal,
what?
innate religio naturalis, the innate appeal, the innate inclination of man towards religion, regardless what religion you follow. You always have this. Even as an atheist, you would also have this as well. So
Okay, you're just
it's an
contradicting
innate.
yourself.
Yeah.
You're just
Mm.
contradicting yourself because you said that
I'm not
even an
contradicting myself.
atheist will have it, but you just will be like aware of it.
Yes,
But you
you
just
do.
said that
Yes,
I'm not aware of it, right?
yes.
You said
Yeah.
I'm not, I
Not.
don't,
It's not. It's.
I'm
It's
not
not that
aware
you're
of the
not
fitra,
aware.
right?
Sorry.
But you just
Please.
said
Sorry.
all
Sorry.
men have it. So you're
Yes.
just
Everyone has
contradicting
it.
yourself,
Everyone has
sir.
it. Sorry. Sorry. You're not listening again. Sorry. Please. So basically, what I'm saying is this. Okay. Everyone has a religion naturalis. Everyone has an inclination towards religion. Okay.
You just said
Yes,
I
you and
don't.
it is. I didn't say that you don't. I'm saying that you're suppressing it. Okay. I'm saying that you're suppressing it. So
You
even an
said I'm not
atheist has
conscious
an
of it or
inclination
something.
towards religion. Yes, you're not conscious. No, it's not that you're
Yeah.
not
So
conscious.
if
That you're
I'm not
suppressing it.
conscious of it, then I'm
Okay.
not aware of it, am I?
You're suppressing it. You're suppressing it. That's what I'm
Yeah, sir.
saying.
Now you're just
Okay.
now you're
Yeah.
backpedaling and changing your claim. You contradicted
Maybe I
yourself.
maybe I didn't word it properly. I'm sorry. I'm just
Oh yeah,
redefining
you
what I.
misspoke.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Probably yes. Maybe you didn't get what I meant earlier. So I'm sorry for that. But basically, what I mean is everyone has this. Everyone, regardless whether you're an atheist, whether you're Hindu, whether you're Jew, etc., whether you're Muslim, you have this innate inclination towards religion. Okay. So this is something. Okay. Like I said, it's piece of a puzzle which fits together to the points that I've already mentioned earlier. The concept of design, the concept of cause and effect, morality and ethics, etc. So without this innate understanding of fitra of your religio naturalis, your inclination towards religion, you're going to just say, "Oh, this is a fallacy. That is a fallacy. This is wrong. That is wrong," and you're not going to come to the conclusion that I was trying to present. Yeah, that is basically what I'm
Do you
saying.
not think that there's a
Yeah.
problem with fallacious reasoning?
Again, say you're doing it again. You're saying, okay, this is a really. I mean, you're
I asked you a
suppressing
question.
you're suppressing. No, I'm saying it that what you are asking me is a fallacy for me, to me at the very least. All right. So I think you can't just simply point out this is a
What
fallacy, that
fallacy?
is a fallacy, this is a fallacy. Okay.
What fallacy?
Okay. So
Me
basically
asking a
this
question is a
my
fallacy? A question can't be a fallacy, sir. A line of
I
reasoning,
think
when
that
somebody
I
makes
think
an
that that
error in a
that
line
I
of
think that
reasoning,
question.
that's what's fallacious, not a question.
I think the fact that you're asking me that question is a fallacy in itself because that's not what I'm
What
saying at all.
fallacy is it?
Okay. I mean, I can't name fallacies. I'm not a philosopher. Okay. I'm not someone who, indulges just into, naming logical fallacies, etc. But the point I'm trying to make is that, okay, all the points that I made is part of a huge puzzle. Okay. And, you need to look at them from the lenses of someone, okay, who has an open heart and open mind and realize that the world just doesn't exist, and you need to have a curiosity, an innate curiosity, to understand how we exist, why do we exist, what is our purpose of existence. So without this understanding, then you're just going to be like a monotone robot just pointing out fallacies here and there. We won't come to any conclusion. I mean, it will be running in circles again. Okay, so that is my point, my position. Okay.
The Fitra and the puzzle pieces thing are just like claims. I don't see how they would be evidence for God, even if like that was the case. The Fitra would be
I'm
evidence
not
for
saying
God,
that
even if it
I'm not
was true.
saying that it is the evidence for God. I'm saying it's a part of the jigsaw
Yeah,
puzzle
I don't
which
see how that would be
defines
any
the
kind of
understanding of
evidence for
God.
God.
Okay. I'm
But
not arguing that. I'm
you're
not
also
arguing or
disclaiming
making
it.
the argument. No, I'm not disclaiming it. I'm saying
Yeah, how
here.
would you be able to fucking demonstrate that every person has that?
I mean, the fact that you're already asking questions about God shows that you do have some of it, but maybe you're suppressing it. I don't know. Maybe you are not understanding fully the bigger picture, the
What the
purpose
fuck?
of
If I
life.
question somebody who
The
believes in fairies, that means that I have some awareness that fairies actually exist.
Yeah,
that's a red herring because you're
it's
talking about
exactly
fairies
what it
and
means.
unicorns and whatever, which
It's
I don't
not
make.
a fucking
Okay.
red herring. It's an analogy, sir.
I
It's an
mean that you are.
analogy.
I mean, we're talking about God here. We're not talking about fairies or unicorns or Pegasus, which we know that these things are creations of man.
Bro, I'm
We don't
No,
talking
you're
believe
just
about
these
not
are
fairies.
answering
real.
the question. It
Okay.
was a fucking analogy.
So the reason why I say this is because, well, what you proposed in your opening statement, you made the stone argument, you made the problem of evil
All right,
argument,
let's
Do
see
you
what I
want to
would
and you
address
make.
go,
those?
yeah,
I mean, we didn't
yes,
get
of
to all
course
your
I can.
arguments,
I'm
which I
I'm
can
I mean
do.
I'm more than happy to argue, to state that, to refute those,
Okay, do you
not
believe that
refute,
God's
but to address
omnipotent?
those. All
That
right.
God can do anything that's logically possible?
Yes, of course. As I've already recited the verse, the Surah Al-Ikhlas, where it says that God is supreme, omnipotent. I mean, I don't know how
Okay. Okay.
much more I can
Is it
explain
logically
what God is.
possible to create a stone that's so heavy you can't lift it?
The question itself is nonsensical because it's illogical. How could God do something or propose something which goes against His omnipotence? Doesn't make any sense.
Sir, you're not answering the question. Is it
No, because
logically possible to create a
it's
stone?
not a
I
logic.
can do that, right?
It's not a logical question because no one can live.
What does
I
that
mean,
mean for
can
a
you?
question to not be logical?
I mean, can yes, because the question what you are proposing, what you are asking, basically the stone argument. I've heard this many times from atheists. I mean, the answer is simple. The answer is the question itself is illogical. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't compute basically. Like for
I don't
example,
know what
can
it
you
means for a
ask?
question to not be
It's simple. I
logical.
can give you. I can ask you this. Can I ask my laptop to make coffee for me?
Yeah,
Yes or no?
yeah.
If your laptop was omnipotent and could do anything that was logically possible, yeah, your laptop should be able to fucking make coffee when you ask it
The
to.
answer is no. Of course it can't. I mean, it's
If it's
impossible. How
omnipotent,
could
it
it
can.
possible? No, it's not. It's not.
Look,
You can't because the laptop has
you're not,
limitations.
you're just evading
It
the
can't go to
question
the.
because
It
you
can't.
know where it
No, I'm not.
leads.
I'm not evading the question. The question itself is logical. You see, the point I'm
What's
meant
the
to make
argument
is
that is
that.
illogical?
Sorry, excuse me. Please let me
Look,
finish.
if God, it's logic, sir, just try to stick with me here, okay?
Okay, sure. Again, you can
It's
speak whatever you
logically
want.
possible to create a stone that's so heavy you can't lift it, right?
It's not
You
logical.
can do it.
No, the
I
answer is
can do it.
no.
It's a logical
I can't do
possibility.
it. I can't do it.
Sir,
No, it's illogical. It's illogical.
you
Why
can't
would
create a
God do
stone that's so
something?
heavy you can't
Why
lift
would
it. You
God?
can't
No, the
glue a
answer is
fucking
simple.
bunch of stones together that
No,
are
the
so
answer is
that make a
simple. Why
rock
would
that's so
God do
heavy you can't lift
something
it.
which goes against His omnipotence? Why would God do something that is so illogical that it goes against, it transgresses His omnipotent, His supreme might? and demonstrate that it's weak. Why would God do that?
Look,
Why would God want to do that? Yeah, you see, that's the point.
I don't care.
So
We're
the
not
answer
talking
is
about God's desires. We're talking about his
the
abilities.
no, the answer is simple. The answer is your question is
Oh my
illogical
God.
and shouldn't be asked. It's that simple.
Damn.
It's really that simple. Okay, it's a nonsensical question. Okay,
We're not
because then
talking
it
about
opens
God's
to man.
desires.
Can
We're
I
talking
create
I
about
got
God's
thing? Can
abilities.
I? Is there such thing
I
as a
got
pink
one
elephant?
left.
That's the question. Is there such thing as a pink elephant walking and in the forest? Right
How is
now,
that relevant?
living and breathing. That's why exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make. The question is nonsensical, right? There's no such thing as a pink elephant, right?
No, I could. It's a yes or no question that I can answer. Not that I
That
know
we
of.
know
No, I don't know
of.
of any fucking pink elephants.
Finding new shit all the time.
Yeah, the answer
How
is
is the
because
question nonsensical? I don't know what you
the
mean.
answer is simple. The answer is simple. The question is illogical. Just as when you ask me, can a god create a
Okay,
stone
let me take you through the
so
line of
big, so
reasoning
huge?
without asking a question, since you can't fucking handle questions. It's logically possible to create a rock that's so heavy you can't lift it, right? That's something I can
No,
do.
no,
Search.
it's
You
not.
can do
It's
it,
not
right? You
logical.
can't. You can glue a bunch of stones together until they're so heavy that you can't lift it.
No, I've never
Yeah,
heard
now
of
you're
anyone
just being
doing that.
dishonest. What are you, a fucking troll? Saying that you can't do that?
I've never heard
Oh
of anyone doing
man,
that,
this one's
or
gonna
anyone
take
attempting to do that. Why
170.
would anyone want to do that? That's the
You're
question.
being so dishonest. So I think it's transparent to everybody who's watching that you're being fucking
I think I
dishonest.
want
I
these,
can
right?
Yeah,
put a bunch of rocks, little rocks together, right? And create a
Yeah.
conglomerate rock that's so heavy I can't lift it, right? I'm not very strong. It wouldn't take very many goddamn fucking rocks to do that.
So I'm
So
gonna
that's a logical
that would
need
be.
possibility. It's something that
If you ask
a
me,
human can
that would
do.
be really that would be really be illogical and
2100.
dumb and
You
a
know what?
very
So
dumb thing to
we
do.
just keep talking over
I'm
each
gonna
other.
need
So let me
what?
finish, and then you can
Okay,
blabber
sure.
on whatever you
Sorry
want to
about that.
say.
I mean,
So let me
maybe I
finish,
got a
and
bit
then
excited. Yeah,
I
sure.
guess I don't
because we're
need a
talking over
big
each other too much.
but
So
Okay.
it's
so
something
where would I want to put it?
that is logically possible. I
Probably
can do it. It wouldn't take very many rocks for me to do it. It's a
hmm.
logical possibility. So let's put it into a syllogism, right?
Let's do
It's
probably do
logically
one
possible.
there.
Creating a rock so heavy you can't lift it is a logical possibility. Premise 2, God can do
Maybe
anything
a
that's logically
small one
possible.
there.
Conclusion, God can create a rock that's so heavy
Big
he can't
one
lift it. But
there.
that would be inconsistent with
Okay,
the
we'll just do
omnipotence,
big
right?
one,
So
I
God
think you're
can't
not.
be
big
fucking
one,
omnipotent, because if he was
and then the
omnipotent, then
rest
he
of
would
them
be able,
small.
he wouldn't be impotent enough to wouldn't lack the power to fucking lift the rock, right? So it's just paradoxical. Now I'll shut up and you
Right?
can fucking blabber on and
Yeah,
humiliate yourself.
yeah, I think that's what I'll do.
Okay, sure. Well, for me, the question is itself is illogical. It's even insane. Why would anyone create a rock so heavy that he or she can't lift it? I mean, if humans can't do it, why would you think that God wants to do something like that? I mean, okay. So the point is here, God will not do something which goes against His omnipotence. It's illogical to attribute something to a supreme being that is supremely omnipotent, that he did something or he does something which goes against that very same omnipotence. Okay, so the question itself for me is illogical. That is my answer actually. All right.
Okay, so I think I've sufficiently humiliated and destroyed him on the omnipotent
If you
paradox.
think so.
So do you want to address the other arguments you gave in the beginning, or do you want to move on to my other ones?
Sure. If you want to go ahead with the other points that I've raised, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, what was the first thing you said because I didn't understand the first thing you said in your opening statement. Do you remember?
Which I gave the definition of God as understood in Islam.
Well, that's not an argument, right? So what was the
No,
first argument?
that's just the opening. The first argument is actually religio naturalis, which you have already talked about. We've discussed about. So yeah. So and then the
Oh,
second
did
is
you give it? Look,
yeah.
did you give any arguments in your opening statement that I didn't tear down yet?
I don't think you have torn down any of my arguments for that matter.
Did you give any arguments in your opening statement that I didn't address yet?
I don't know. Maybe you maybe morality and ethics and design. Okay, sorry, you did talk about that. Okay. So
And in fact, what I'll say is we have about 20-30 more minutes of open discussion, and I'll just recenter it to once again, we are talking evidence for God.
All right, thank you, Amy. So maybe I should address your point, okay? Because you mentioned something
Well,
about
yeah, but I
yeah,
just want to be sure. Is there anything that you think is evidence for God that I didn't address yet?
I think you've already touched on them. Thank you. So I think
So
I should
wait, you're
yeah.
because I think there was something else in your opening statement that you claimed was evidence, and I just didn't understand it.
Um, I don't know which one is it because I've already touched on. I mean, we've already talked about fitra. We've talked about religio naturalis. We've talked about cause and effect. We've talked about design. We've talked about morality and ethics, and human reasoning. So these are the 5 points that I've given today. So what else have you not
Okay,
touched
then
about?
I like destroyed every one of your fucking supposed evidence. So the default position from here would actually be to not believe in God, since there's not sufficient evidence for God. But we can go on to my other argument. So,
Sure,
we have the
sure.
omnipotence and the
Yeah. So okay.
omnibenevolence.
Yeah. So basically, what we have talked about just now was the stone argument. For me, that is a basically the proposition that God can create. I mean, it goes against the idea of omnipotence, okay? Because you can't say that something will create, will create something so impossible for him to do that he or
No, that
it
sir,
cannot do
we're
it. All
I
right,
already destroyed you about the
that's
omnipotence
illogical.
paradox. I'm talking about something
I don't think
else.
you did. I don't think you did. Okay, but
I'm
no,
talking. You
I'm
want
just.
to still talk about the omnipotence paradox?
Excuse me, please let me finish. All right. Okay. So we talked about that. So now we're going to talk about the problem of evil. So you
Yeah.
say that your argument is basically why is there evil in the world to the point that God
No,
didn't
my
do
argument
anything
was
to
not a
stop it.
question. I gave a syllogism in the beginning.
So maybe you would like to
Um,
elaborate on the problem of evil.
I'm
Look,
not
if
even
God
making
is
this up.
both omniscient and, or I'm sorry, omnibenevolent and omnipotent, all powerful and all good, he would have the desire to stop evil, and he would have the power to stop evil. So we wouldn't have evil, but yet we do have evil. Therefore, an omnipotent, omnibenevolent God does not exist.
So basically, you're appealing to the idea that the world must be a peaceful place without any problems,
Well, the
without any
question would be
chaos,
then
without any
is would he want to
the
stop the
difficulties that
evil?
we go
Why would
through.
he
You see
want
that
to
the
do
problem
that?
with this basic issue of problem of evil is that this is not a problem in Islam. Okay, in Islam we believe that we human beings are here on earth. The life on earth itself is a test. Okay, life is not permanent. In the end, everyone's going to die, and we will be judged before Almighty God. So whatever difficulty or whatever evil or whatever problem that we face on earth, it's all a test. It's part of the test from God to determine as to whether we are truly sincere in bowing down to the one true God. Because basically what it means is that um, there's God wants us, okay, to recognize Him. Our purpose on earth is to know and recognize Him and to worship Him. This is basically the Muslim position. Okay, so the problem of the problem of evil does not even factor in to the Muslim mind. Okay, this may be a problem to those from other faiths, but in Islam we don't have this problem because we know that our purpose on earth is to go through the trials and tribulations of life in order that when we come before the one true God, we will be able to justify ourselves before Him. So that's basically the point of evil as we understand it. Okay, so this is my position.
Okay, you didn't address anything I said. You believe that God's omnibenevolent, right?
I don't see how this have anything to do with God's attributes itself because God
Do you know what
purposefully sent us to
omnibenevolent
earth.
means?
Yes, omnibenevolent means God being merciful, being great, being rahmah.
All
We
good,
basically,
infinitely
yeah,
good, right?
yes, of course, of course.
So
So
if you're
basically in Islam,
infinitely
we
good,
yes,
then you
yeah.
desire there to be no evil.
No, I don't desire to
Why?
be. No, I mean, I don't. Of course, we
Look,
wish
if
that
you're
there were no
infinitely
evil,
good,
but
then you
we
would want to bring about the best possible world, right?
No.
life on Earth is not meant to be permanent. Hence, why we go through these evils, these
You're not
problems.
addressing what I'm
Exactly.
saying, sir.
Yeah, you're not
If you're
understanding what I'm
infinitely
saying.
good, then you
Okay.
would want to bring about the world that's the best one, right?
Oh my God. Okay, I think I'm
No.
going to have
Just
to
say
pause
no,
that a
bro.
bit. I'm sorry. You need to understand this from the Islamic perspective because you're not getting it.
Sir, why
Right?
are
I'm
you not?
sorry.
Why can't you answer a
You're
fucking
not
goddamn
getting it.
question?
You're absolutely not getting it. Okay. I need to
No, you're
reverse
not getting it,
reverse you.
sir.
I'm sorry, but you are not getting it. Please let me speak. All right, at the very least.
You already
Okay, thank
rambled
you.
on, and it was like really boring. I like let you go on
Well,
for a long time
I
with your
can't help
nonsense
it
and
if you
wasn't
think that I'm
addressing the
boring, but I'm
argument.
addressing your points. I'm addressing your points. Please
No, you
give
didn't.
me the
I
chance
let
to
you
speak.
ramble on. It was like for a full minute, and you weren't addressing anything I said, and I allowed it anyway. Like the audience is probably fucking bored with that
That's
shit.
up to them.
But
But
look,
I mean,
do you believe that God is omnibenevolent?
oh my God. I mean, we're going back into circles again. I mean, this has absolutely, the problem of evil has absolutely nothing to do with the attributes of God being Rahmah, being basically in Islam, we believe that God is the most gracious, the most merciful. In fact,
Get
in
out
every
me.
surah in the Quran, except for one, we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. God, the most gracious, the most merciful. So so this has, we understand also that life has trials and tribulations, has evil, has problems, but this does not affect the omnipotence, the omnipotent of God. So this has no relevance whatsoever. It's a totally sub issue to that problem, okay, to that so-called problem of evil. So I'm
Do
trying
you
to say
believe God
here,
is omnibenevolent?
you're just repeating the same question again without listening to what I said,
What's
so
the
I don't
answer?
know.
You haven't answered it.
I just did. You're refusing to listen to my answer. That's the problem.
Is it yes or no?
Okay.
Is the answer yes or no? It's a yes or no
there's
question.
a there- there's a no there's no yes or no answer to this. It's a totally
Yes,
separate
I
issue
look. It's
altogether.
either
Oh my
God
God.
is
Oh my
omnibenevolent or he is
God.
not omnibenevolent, right? There's only those two options. There's not any in between. Either he is or he isn't.
You're
Do you
still not
disagree
getting
with
it.
that?
You're still not getting the
I would
point.
agree with
Still,
that. Just agree with
absolutely
that,
still
bro.
not getting
Just do it.
the point. Okay. Life and trials and tribulations on earth has nothing whatsoever to do whether he's omnipotent. Okay. It's that simple. It's really that
Sir,
simple.
you're a fucking clown. You're a clown. It's really sad. It's really sad. I feel sorry for you. Look, I have
I feel
Muslim
sorry
friends
for
on
you.
the internet. I have
I
Muslim
really
friends
feel
on the
sorry for you.
internet that would be happy that they're
My
actually fucking can argue for their position. They would be happy to help you. Okay, go over to Khalil's channel,
my
EA
God.
Dawa.
My
He
God.
fucking does a live
My
stream every
God.
night. You should go over there and learn how to fucking argue for your position
Oh
because
my God,
it's
you really
pitiful.
don't. You're totally not getting the point. I mean, I have no problems with Brother Khalil of EA Dakwah. I know him very well, but you're totally just skipping the point and just ignoring whatever I just said and just repeating back the same question. So I don't see any benefit that
Do
I
you
can give
agree that
from
it's
answering this.
either the case that God is omnibenevolent or
uh,
it's not the case? Do you agree with
Subhanallah.
that?
Oh my God. I mean, okay, you're just repeating the same question again. I mean, oh my God. I don't know what to say.
No,
Okay, I'm
before
speechless.
I asked you, is God omnibenevolent or not? Do you believe that or not? And you wouldn't answer it. Like you said, there's like
Of
you're
course
trying
I
to make
do
out
believe that. Of course
what?
I do believe that God omnipresent.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Why didn't you just answer then?
You
You're like
asked me
wasting
when
everybody's time. Okay,
you
so
are
now
wasting
try
my
to
time.
stick with me here. If God is omnibenevolent, then he desires, if he's infinitely good, he desires to bring about the best possible world, to maximize the good, right? If you're infinitely good, you desire to maximize the good, don't you?
No.
Oh, then what the fuck does it
My
mean to be
God.
infinitely good if you don't want to maximize the good?
Uh, my God, you really don't get it. I mean, you
Let's
think
see.
that
What
that
does it
life on Earth is
mean
infinite and it will never
to
end,
be
and then when we
infinitely
die,
good
we
if
go
you don't want to
completely. No, no.
maximize it? Why do you want to
What
maximize
is
it?
your
Why do you
belief?
have to
What
maximize it?
actually is your belief that what's your position on life after death? I mean, do you actually have a
What
position
if
on
you
that?
have other things that are good that you're trying
I
to
can
get
answer
at,
that, but it's like, are we
but it
moving
has to
on?
go
Like, are
through
you
No,
submitting to my
we're not
argument
no.
now?
I'll try
You're
not
like
to move on.
basically curling
I
up.
just want to
bad things to get to the other
know what
side
your
of where the
position is on
goodness
life after
is.
death.
I don't see how that's relevant. I'll answer it though, but like I've tore down all your supposed evidence and I've erected all
No,
my
you
own
didn't.
arguments that you won't even really fucking address. You're just being so evasive. So basically right now when you're asking me something that has nothing to do with the existence of God, what my position is on the afterlife right now, you're just curling up into a fucking fetal position on the floor in
Please
failure.
answer the question. You don't have to you know be belligerent about it. Yeah, I'm just asking a
Yeah,
simple
I think
question.
when you die, you don't come alive again, you stop existing. That's what I think.
Oh wow. Okay. So
Do you have
yeah.
any evidence to the contrary?
Yes. So you don't believe that there's life after death. You don't believe that we are not accountable for our actions on Earth. You think that life is just just this space time continuum that we are living in, And when it ends, when your life ends, it ends there. So that's basically your position.
Yeah, pretty much,
Okay.
right? That
So
would be
now I
her
understand where you're coming from, right?
take.
Now I do understand this. But the thing is,
Really didn't realize
okay,
that, bro. You
this is
realize that. You knew
totally
that.
related. So
Don't no.
again, my position is
Totally what? I didn't
on
hear
the.
you.
You need to understand that my position, okay, is based on the position that there is life after death, that we are accountable for our actions. So it goes back to why we are here on earth. Okay, the reason why we are here on earth is to know and recognize the creator. Okay, this is the Islamic position that I'm putting forth. Okay, so hence, because we are here to know and recognize the creator, God has prepared for us life with all its difficulties. But this doesn't mean that God is not omnibenevolent or not all good, and God does not want evil upon us. It does not mean that at all. I'm saying that life is a test. It's basically one huge test for us. So you can't expect, basically cookies and chocolates throughout your life. There's going to be problems. So this is something that everyone goes through. Okay, so that doesn't affect God's benevolence and and all goodness, and his supreme rahmah, as we call it in Islam, over all human beings. This is my position. I mean, you are talking about, okay, because God has brought out evil, so because life has evil, life has problems, life has this, therefore God doesn't exist. That's basically what you're arguing. So how is that? I mean, sorry, that argument doesn't work with the human, so it doesn't work with the Muslim position. Okay, the Muslim philosophy on this is totally different from what you understand in your Western secular life that you're leading right now. Okay, this is my position. Okay, so I hope you get at least a part of what I'm saying, at the very least. Okay.
And I will say, we have about 5 or 10 more minutes of open discussion. So keep on sending those questions into me in chat at Amy Newman, as well as those super chats. And I'll hand it back to you guys and gals before we do closing statements as well, so you can tell people what you got going on. But if you have a question for each other, now's the time to do it. Handing it right back over to you guys.
Okay, I just want people to know that me letting him ramble that boring nonsense just now was this good, because I looked at some of the comments on my other debates and like people interrupt that I overtalk too much. So that was everybody fucking making that comment about me. That was your punishment, to listen to that boring nonsense for 90 seconds straight. So that's, I'm not gonna interrupt him for the rest of the time. That's your fucking punishment for complaining that I interrupt too much. So listen to that
Cool, let him know.
garbage.
Tell him.
Okay, so all the shit that you just said didn't actually address the. You just made a bunch of claims without giving evidence for it, right? So, and it's not addressing the omnibenevolence argument that I gave. But we can move on to something else, to another argument of mine.
Yeah, I think let us just move on, please. Sorry, and maybe you can give a closing statement
Yeah,
before
you're
we end
surrendering.
it. Yeah,
That's what
if you
Islam
wanted,
means, right?
if you
Submission.
want.
Submission. That's what the word Islam means.
Well, I don't come here to win or lose, but that's up to you. All right.
What's the word Islam mean?
Islam has the word Islam has many multifaceted meanings in Arabic, so it depends. One of them is
Evasive.
submission, of course. No, I'm not being evasive. This is
Submission.
Arabic.
Yeah, you're submitting to a fucking female right now.
But the
How does
primary
that
meaning
feel?
of Islam is peace. Okay, the primary meaning of Islam is peace. Okay, that's the thing. So it's basically the full meaning of the word Islam means submission, or to submit to the one true God in utter peace, with not just with God but with yourself and with the world. So this is basically what Islam means. But unfortunately, I don't see any peace in you. So I really feel sorry for you, but it's up to you, right?
I feel sorry for you for being so pitiful, sir. It's like you've never even heard of any of the arguments for Islam before. Like I said, after the let's exchange emails after the show, because I have Muslim friends on the internet that can help you. You really need help.
It's up to you. It's
Anyway,
up to you.
we can go on to another argument. So you believe that free will exists, yet you believe. See, I didn't present this in my opening because I didn't think we would even have time to get to it. But you just like keep submitting to all of my arguments and give up on when I'm arguing against your evidence. So you believe that free will exists, but yet you believe that God is omniscient. So God knows everything you'll do before you're born. Then you can't
Are you guys
have free
following me?
will, because
Yeah, okay.
choice would imply that there's more than one option. But there's never more than one option if an omniscient God exists, an omniscient God who created it, who brought about all the affairs, right? So uh let's just
Ah,
take you're choosing between coffee and tea, right?
yeah, get that guy.
If God, a choice implies there's more than one option. So you have the coffee and the tea. Sorry, I'm not articulating well. But if God knew before you were born you were going to drink the coffee, then you can't drink the tea, right? That's not an option, right? Can God be
No,
wrong? Can God
Why
be
would
wrong,
God?
sir?
no. Well, I don't think
Okay,
so.
let me
But
see. It's
Watching
basically
a
this.
fucking debate,
Okay,
not
the
answer.
tea
I'm
thing,
just
God
gonna let him
knowing that
ramble
you
on
drank the
because I'm saying I
tea
interrupted
has
him.
nothing to
So
do
listen
with
to it,
being
regardless. Go
having
ahead,
free
sir.
will or not.
Can God be
Just
wrong?
because he knows what you're gonna do
no,
doesn't
God can't be wrong
mean
because basically,
that
yes,
you
we have free
don't have
will.
free
We have free
will.
will. Okay, but what do you mean by free? What's your definition of free will? I mean,
Like if you're
free will
driving,
doesn't mean that
somebody's driving
we are not
towards the
bound by
edge of a cliff, and
limitations.
you're like, oh,
Okay,
well, that person
there are limitations on
is
what we can
going
do
off of the edge of that
and
cliff.
what we are free to do, right?
They still have
So
a choice to
in your
stop or
question, you
not.
ask whether God
That
knows
doesn't
that
mean that you
I'm going to.
like I
Let's say
took
if I
away
pick
your
this up,
free
did
will
God
because I
know that
know
I was
what you're
going to pick
about to
this up?
do.
Yeah, yes, probably. We don't know for sure, but I guess he would know that I'm going to drop it right now. But does that affect my decision to pick this up? No, it doesn't. I mean, God knows that I'm going to pick this up, but did God compel me to pick this up, or did God compel me to pick this up right now? So that is you need to understand when we say free will, what do you mean by free will? Does God interfere? Does God decide for us whatever we need to do? Does God know that what we're going to do? Yes, of course. But God doesn't determine what we're going to decide to do. Okay. Okay, that is totally up to us whether we so going back to the theological aspect of it. So God knows whether we're going to be disbelievers or we're going to be believers. Okay, that is also that is also something which we probably don't have any control over, but also God gave us the free will to decide as to whether you want to be a believer or disbeliever. So again, this goes again to what do you mean by free will? Actually, yeah, yeah, that's all.
Okay, so are you done? So free will means
Pretty
that you
much done.
one thing it would mean entail is that you have the ability to do otherwise in the past, which I already showed why if God was omniscient, he wouldn't be able to, right? But what's really funny is I asked you,
Yeah,
can
he
God be
would.
wrong? Which would mean he's not omniscient if he can be wrong. And
Why
you
would
said
why would God be
yes.
wrong?
Yes, sir, I didn't interrupt you. I let you go on for a long time. I'm not finished.
You keep interrupting me, but never mind. It's
You
okay.
you said that God, I said, can God be wrong? Can God be wrong? And you said, yes, he can be wrong. So what's happened here is you're
I
abandoning
didn't say
your
that.
own.
I didn't say that. That's you
Yes,
putting
you
words into my
did.
mouth.
Yes, you
No,
I
I
think
did.
they
didn't.
heard me.
No, I
Yeah.
didn't. No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did say God can be wrong. So I'm gonna make a
No, I did.
video of you
I
saying
didn't.
that. Oh,
I didn't say God is
Clip
wrong
it.
or
I'm gonna
God can
put
be
the
wrong.
clip of you
Clip
saying
it.
that
Send
next
it
to
out.
this, and you're gonna look so stupid. And you
I
can
don't know
go
if
find it on
he's.
my channel, Godless YouTube Godless Skill. It'll be up in a
Oh
few
my God.
days. You're gonna look
Yeah,
like a
go ahead.
clown. You're a clown,
Yeah,
sir. You're a fucking
Speaking
yeah, go
clown.
ahead.
of
Go ahead.
which,
Go ahead.
when
Up
you
to you.
two are feel like you've done questioning each other, we will move into closing statements and then the Q&A. So, if you feel like you've gotten your
Yeah.
points through,
I don't think
So
I
he
got
did
through
say
to her,
that,
but
and
it's
I
okay.
just want to. Well, what we're doing our closing statements? Yeah, we can do our closing
well,
statements.
that
Sure, sure.
sounds fantastic. In that case, let's not only have a closing statement, but tell us what you got going on in the interwebs.
What's that? What's the interval?
Oh, as in, what do you feel free to shill? What is your channel? What you got going on to share for people to go to? Um, anything you would like. The closing statement. The floor is yours if you would like, Alice.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what happened at the very end there was when he said yes, God can be wrong. He not only failed during this debate to defend there being evidence for God, but he even at the very end abandoned his own theology because he was so beaten down by me, denying God's omniscience. So what happened here tonight is I destroyed all this. The baby's crying. Okay. sorry, I destroyed all of his supposed arguments. They weren't even arguments, they were mostly just claims, but I did show the error in reasoning. And then I put up all my own arguments, and he was just like, "Oh, let's like." I defeated him on it with every one because he just kept being like, "Oh, let's move on to the next one. Let's move on to the next one." Like on every, you were humiliated and destroyed on every single thing tonight. All the supposed evidence you presented and all of my arguments, I won each of those little battles. I won every one of them. And he like, just gotta put the puzzles, put all my logical fallacies together into a big puzzle, and then you'll get God. And what do I got going on my channel? I didn't post anything for a year. I just recently started posting videos again. Clubhouse is a terrible, awful platform, but that's where I've been because that's where my friends are on the internet. So that's where you can find me in active and voice chat.
Oh, thank you. Woohoo! Thank you so
The
very
link
much.
to my YouTube channel is in the description. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's right. The link to Godless Girl's YouTube is in the description below, and it's great to have you back on Modern Day Debate. And all right, before we get into the Q&A, the Muslim apologist, what you got going on, and what are your final thoughts?
Well, to summarize this discussion, unfortunately, I think Godless didn't quite get the philosophical side, the Islamic position on many things, because she's looking at it from the lenses of the Western liberal secular philosophy position. So of course she has this idea that whatever that happens on on earth, for example, like the problem of evil, trials and tribulations affecting God's all good, all omnipotent, all omnibenevolent. Okay, so that is for me that's a fallacy in itself from the lenses of an Islamic perspective. Okay, also she did not address the question as to whether creation appears out of nowhere. I mean, who created why did creation, why a tree is a tree if there's nothing, if there's no one, there's no power which created, which caused the tree to exist. So she did not address this. All she did is this logical fallacy, this logical fallacy, that this is a problem, that is a problem. I mean, she did not answer the question. For me, it's more, I mean, maybe it's because of her Wetanshao, her worldview, which causes her to say this, and I excuse her for that, and I forgive her for that. Okay, and well, there are many things which I explain, like for example, the concept of religio naturalis, the concept, the innate understanding of God. That she just dismisses this. Okay, she just says that this is a fallacy. I mean, without explaining why is it a fallacy. Okay, so for me, this is an, well, if you want to play fallacies, then I would say that's an appeal to emotionalism. But I'm not going to do that. I don't come here to win or lose. She keeps boasting, oh, I've won, I've you, me, meaning me, have not answered any of my questions. That's what because she comes here with the mindset to win. I don't come here with the mindset to defeat or to bash down the opponent. No, that's not my intention at all. My presence here is to present the Islamic position, my position as a Muslim, as to the existence, evidence for the existence of God. Whether you want to accept it or not, that is up to you. Okay, that is totally your choice. That is part of your free will. So anyway, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Godless, for having me. Thank you, Amy. And my channel is the Muslim Apologist. Okay, I'm wearing a logo of my channel. Okay, you can see that. That's the logo. Okay, so I hope that you will come to the channel and hope to see you again. Thank you very much.
Woohoo! Thank you so very much, the Muslim apologist. Once again, both of our fantastic debaters' channels are in the description below. And with that, we are going to move into about 35 minutes of Q&A. So if you want to make sure that your question is asked to our wonderful interlocutors, make sure to send in those super chats. But the first question, $5 from Notion Slave. Does he have any degree in Islamic studies or philosophy? what's the point? Also, the lady seems like she's on a very up type of sending love. No.
Yeah, she was on one. They had
And
a previous
Do you want
experience.
me to answer that?
yes, I
Okay,
probably
sure,
shouldn't read ad hominem, so we're sending
sure.
love.
Oh, I don't mind if you want to read insults to me. I love most of my followers are actually people who hate me, so you can read them.
We love you. Sending
And I can
much.
also answer the question for him. Obviously not. He doesn't have any degree in Islam or philosophy.
Oh my God. So you're interrupting me again. See, this is the problem with you. Okay, I was going to answer that. Okay, so basically it's this. My background is totally secular. Okay, I have you would say an advanced diploma in IT. Okay, I'm not from an religious background. That being said, I'm actually I've already undergone several courses related to Islamic studies. I've read many books on Islamic studies, Islamic philosophy, etc. And I'm actually preparing myself for a degree in Islamic studies, which should come in this fall, right? I mean, fall in your area. I mean, okay, so basically November, December. So I'm actually taking up an Islamic degree. I'm also undergoing several training studies in Islam as well. So yeah, so that's my answer.
Woohoo! Thank you so very much. And then a $5 super chat from Mark Reed. What is up? Appeal to your heart? What kind of evidence is that? My heart pumps blood around my body. What does yours do, mate?
I think that question's for the Muslim, right?
I believe so.
I think that my answer would be is the same as yours, the heart pumping throughout my body. Why would that be even an issue? I don't understand.
And alright, sending love. And then a $5 super chat from Ozine Talks. Where is the computer mouse tree if it's less complex and so easy for God?
Did you say that question was from Christian Prince?
The last one was from Mark Reed. This one is from Ozine Talks.
Oh, okay. Was the question for me?
So the question is, where is the computer mouse tree if it's less complex and so easy for God? I think that is for the
I don't
Ozine
understand the
Talks.
question.
Does that
I
make
don't,
any
I don't,
sense
I
to
don't,
you?
I don't really get it either. But I think he or she is trying to insinuate that God, if God is so all powerful and all the all creator, why is there no computer tray? I think that's what he's trying to insinuate. But the answer is very simple. Why would God want to delve into such minor details? I mean, that doesn't mean that God will not create. I mean, it's not able to to do something like that. But that being said, God doesn't God basically is, I mean, a computer tray is not going to appear out of nowhere, right? There has to be a cause and effect. Okay, it has to be within uh laws, the rules of the universe. So that is basically it, right? Okay.
Thank you, Ozine Talks. In fact, we got a chain here from Ozine Talks sending so much love and thank you for the support. He's sending in a comment for his 7th month as extra juicy. That's right, you can become a fantastic channel member for a whole bunch of fun badges and emojis. But his comment is falsify the cyclical universe model and come back.
I don't know what that model is. I don't even know if that was me.
and mean anything to you, Muslim apologist, and Ozine, if you don't feel or anyone feels like their comment didn't get a response or wasn't clarified, feel free to send in another question. But yes, going 3, going 2, going 1, moving to Ozine Talks for another $10, and he also had clarification on that one, this one, the last one. Universal religious experiences without monotheistic tyranny led to polytheism and pantheism, not Allah. Just because we evolve to want to understand the world around us isn't proof of a God.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes, and I think most of his, now that I'm reinterpreting them, they seem to be for you, the Muslim apologist.
No, okay, all right. So basically, it's like this, all right. So from the perspective of Islam, again, I'm talking about the perspective of Islam. We believe that there's always been one God. Okay, God sent His prophet Adam, the first human being, to Earth, and his progeny to worship the one true God. But over time, over millennia and millennia and millennia, man became corrupted. Okay, man corrupt the one true religion of God, and put into it innovations and all kinds of deviances into the religion of the one true God. Hence why you see there are multiple religions in the world today. Okay, so for us Muslims, Islam is not a new religion that just appeared in 6th century Arabia. We believe as Muslims, Islam was the primordial religion right from the beginning of time. Okay, so this is something. You need to look at this from the Islamic lenses to understand this. So monotheism is the primordial religion, and polytheism, pantheism, etc., is the result of this corruption from monotheism. But monotheism has always been the true religion, okay, of the one true God.
Thank you so very much. And a $2 super chat from Joe Schwartz. This is our irreverent question of the day, but sending so much. What is your favorite video game for both?
Mod, somebody is writing the N-word in chat, your live chat. Oh, never mind. They got it. Message deleted. Sorry.
Sending so much love to our mods. And
Shit.
Do you want me to answer that? The games that I play?
Sure. What's your favorite video game? If you want. If you don't have one or don't want to answer.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I do have a couple right now. I'm actually playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Elden Ring. So and also I'm installing Warhammer 3 and trying
Bro,
to
why
play
ain't
that
my
as
map
well.
coming
So,
up? What's
but
going on
because
with
of
this
my
map?
time limitations with work and so on, so I don't get to
That's
enjoy
weird.
this very much. Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Oh, Godless, you can have a chance. If you don't,
Oh,
That's
the
really
question
weird.
is, what video games do I play?
yes,
That was the
ma'am.
question.
See if I can remember what
I
some of
don't play
those.
video games. I used to when I was a teenager, play like all the Nintendo games, but not anymore.
Sounds good. Sending love, Joe. And then a $5 super chat from Coffee Mom. The debate title is Evidence for God. So, Muslim apologists, do you have any evidence, question mark? Any evidence at all that is not a logical fallacy?
Wasn't that what I presented for the past 1 hour or so? Why do I need to repeat myself?
No, sir. It was not.
That's your opinion, but that doesn't prove anything. Yeah, your opinion doesn't really count, right?
Send in so much love. The spice is real. Minnesota NFTs, $5. Tagging me says not sure if the ad hominem attacks making this a productive debate. Would any of you like to?
Oh yeah, I'll address that. So I love when idiots are so stupid that they accuse me of an ad hominem attack because they're just misunderstanding what an ad hominem is. What's the name of the person that said that?
We're about to put them into witness protection, but it was Minnesota NFTs. Sending
Minnesota.
love.
Okay.
Thank you for
So
the support.
look, what an ad hominem is when you dismiss somebody's argument in because by attacking their character. So if you address the argument and then call them a retard or whatever, that wouldn't be an ad hominem. And if you're just in conversation, if you're just
Oh,
like
here we go.
saying
Here
an
we go with
insult,
that.
that's also not an ad hominem if they haven't given an argument. So Minnesota, I just addressed what you said and told you why you were wrong. So now, right now, I'm not committing an ad hominem when I call you a stupid, retarded, asinine, moronic fool for misunderstanding what an ad hominem is.
Yeah, no.
Sending so much love, and unless the Muslim apologist has a comment, we are going to keep on going for a $5 super chat from Pro Debates. Can he be specific about the training studies in Islam he's going through?
Oh, wow, wow.
Where are these through? What courses?
No, that's fine, bro. Bring it.
Be
Where you at?
specific.
I know there's another one.
The answer is no,
Pretty sure there
because
was
I
3 of
think
them,
this
wasn't
is
there?
something, a private matter between me and the university. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you, and sent in love pro debates and $5 super chat from
Is that him?
Marshall
That's him right
Samford.
there.
Does he have any
Yeah.
evidence whatsoever
Make you
that
stand
makes
up. There you go.
Islam more likely than naturalism?
Well, I guess that will be a separate debate because this is about evidence for God. So I've tried to, make it more general, right? So if you want specifics about why Islam is more truer than naturalism, or why Islam is more true than this or more true than that, then that would be a separate debate, right? I wouldn't get into it, right?
Woohoo! And all right, we're going to move into a few regular questions, but if you want yours moved to the front of the line, feel free to send in those super chats, and we appreciate the support. But from Sea Science Film, for Godless Girl, do you believe a universe could exist where consciousness doesn't exist? This universe didn't have to be made to support conscious life. Why do you suppose it does?
Well, because it's supported, I'm in it and I'm conscious. So therefore, I guess it supports consciousness, whatever. And consciousness arises. But, yeah, I do think it's possible for a universe to exist without consciousness. I think actually there used to exist our universe before there was consciousness, so it already has been the case.
Woo-hoo. Question, and thank you, Sea Science, from Piggly Pig Swillbucket.
Oh, Matt, you're working again.
How do the debaters define evidence?
Oh, I was way up there. Okay. Here, let's go.
Usually evidence is used to be like empirical support for a hypothesis. Empirical meaning like something physical out in the world, but it can also mean like if you have an argument, like a priori argument, which wouldn't be empirical evidence, but it would still be a sufficient reason to believe in a proposition.
And if you wanted
It's
to answer...
so an observation, and that would be an observation that would be supportive of a hypothesis.
Muslim apologist, I think it was for both, if you wanted to answer.
Well, I think my answer would be similar to hers, but I also add the element of not just from logic alone, but also from witnessing, from experience, from seeing what you believe. Seeing is believing, right? And also from deep within your heart as well. Your appeal in the case of God, your appeal to the religio naturalis. So it is all these factors combined. Okay, it's not just one singular reasoning just from logic alone. No, you can't just define God by just reason alone. Okay, there's so many other factors that come into play, right? So this is my understanding of evidence.
Thank you both. And at what the sun sits under Allah's throne at night, so when is it night on a globe?
Oh my God, this must be a atheist or something asking this question. So basically, this hadith is talking about a metaphysical experience. Okay, you can't define, you can't explain metaphysical experience or a metaphysical description from the perspective of human sciences. Okay, so my answer is that it's a metaphysical thing. We can't understand, we can't comprehend this. So no one can give you an answer from science, because the purpose of science is not to give a metaphysical answer. That's pretty much it.
Woohoo! And question from Miss No? Amy, if God exists, then why can't he
I don't know. You already got the medal
get
from
rid
here,
of
right?
the damn talking snake from the Garden of Eden?
You did. It's back.
Trying to PG rate that. If God exists, then why can't he get rid of the talking snake from the Garden of Eden?
Was that question meant for me?
I believe so.
In Islam, we don't believe the biblical narrative. I mean, we know about the fall of Adam and so on, but it's a totally different narration. We don't have a talking snake in the garden. Okay, so I'm sorry, but that is probably a Jewish Christian understanding of what happened at the Garden of Eden, but it's not an Islamic one, so I can't answer that.
Fantastic. $10 question coming in from Grixlet Panda. Sending love, Panda. Question for Godless Girl. Good to have you back. Why do
Thank
you
you.
think God's mind could not create the universe when God is necessarily all powerful?
I don't know if he knows what necessarily means. Necessarily means something exists. Necessarily means it means that it exists in all possible worlds. So, I already gave my argument for why a mind couldn't create the universe if we take time to begin at the beginning of the universe, because then the mind would have to exist prior to time, and prior is temporal, so it's really just gibberish.
Thank you. And $10 super chat from Tim Pryor. I'm going to take a few hundred Bibles and replace the word God with Tim. Then, in 3,000 years, I'll be God. Come on, people. The Bible is just a book written by man.
You want me to answer that?
So here's what I'll do for Tim, because I think he's trying to fill in for any holy text. What would you say to that, to someone who said the same of the Quran?
Well, first of all, of course, I agree with him that the Bible is man-made. We Muslims, we reject the Bible. Okay. So as for the Quran, we Muslims believe that the Quran itself is a miracle from God. Basically, as the Christians believe that Jesus was the Word made flesh, we believe as Muslims, that the Quran is the Word made book. Okay, so that's basically to say that the Quran for us is divine. It has divine origin. So you can't compare it to the Bible or any other holy text. So that is basically my answer. Yeah.
All right, thank you so very much.
Did I not
We
get this
have
one?
a few more
Okay,
questions,
yeah, I got
and
that
then we're
one.
gonna wrap up. So, like I said, send those super chats in if you want to get your burning desires answered now. But Gina from Cologne, have you ever considered to Godless? Have you ever considered debating in Speaker's Corner in London? You would shrivel the balls of the most violent Muslim mobs there and make them run. You go, girl. Got a fan out
Oh,
there.
I haven't really considered it, but I've fantasized about it. If I ever make my way over to Europe, I will go to Speaker's Corner. But if anybody wants to pay for my plane ticket over there, I will be happy to go, and I act the exact same way I do online in real life. I'll fucking get in their face. It will be so entertaining. Post those videos of me getting in people's face at Speaker's Corner. That would be amazing. So no, I haven't considered it. Just fantasized about it.
Woohoo! From
Start a GoFundMe for me for a plane ticket to Europe.
From Pro Debates, can he at least tell us what he's studying? He doesn't have to tell us the university. Not trying to be rude. What are you... And once again, feel free to answer or not, because don't want to...
What did
No,
it
I
say?
don't
Sorry.
think so. Yeah.
Oh, it was for him. Sorry.
Yeah, it was for me. Yeah, the answer is simple. I'm sorry, but I'm not divulging any details for now because it's still an ongoing process. So I don't want to presume the
I
university.
got one
right?
more. I can get that.
And all right, the last question. I see him
We're on the last
having
question,
so
guys.
much fun in chat. We're sending
About to
love
jump off here
to
anyways.
your way or Yahweh. I'm going to use you as a platform. Well, first of all, he's saying, are you ready to debate the 7-day
Ah, fuck, that would be
cycle
illegal.
argument for the Hebrew God, Godless?
Should I try it? I just think if I try
And
it,
I think I know what her answer would be, and
Okay,
I'm
let's
going
do
to answer that for everyone by saying that if anyone out there has debate experience and you are looking for a platform, feel free to check out the About page in Modern Day Debate, and we would always love to have more performers. And all right, with that, I do hope that you all had a fantastic night tonight on Modern Day Debate.
it was
We are a
great.
neutral
We
platform
appreciate it.
welcoming everybody from all walks of life. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to like and subscribe, including tonight's debate on Evidence for God with our debaters, Godless Girl and the Muslim Apologist. Plus, if you liked what any of our guests had to say, all of their links are in the description below if you're looking for even more fun after the show. Feel free to check out the MDD Discord. And with that, I am Amy Newman with Modern Day Debate. We hope you keep on having great conversations, discussions, and debates. Good night,
All right, guys.
everyone.
Let me finish this out. Because it's going to need, like, so much metal. I don't even think... Well, guess what? 20... 4,200? That's still a lot. Yeah. I'll probably have this finished by the next time I come back on. So I'm probably going to just finish this up, get the get the wall or get the gate up, and then try to. So I'm gonna have to get the gate up, but then I'm gonna have to put walls going to the gate, so that's still gonna be more metal. And then I'm probably gonna need more cement. So no, I don't have that much of that left. Yeah, got a few stacks. And for what we need, it's this one, right? Yeah. So we gotta have 490. So we're gonna need. That's gonna take. We're only gonna have 100 cementing paste left after that. So we're definitely gonna have to go hit some beavers. Yeah. And then we'll be done with that. But we're just done with that because then the next thing I gotta do. I gotta make. So I want to make this bigger. I want to make this go probably from end to end. I want it to take over all this space. Well, probably to right there. And then on over. Make it huge. Make it pretty high up in the air. Just get weird with it, you know? Get a little freaky with it. But I'll keep working on it. I think I'm going to jump off.